like haunts?
Yes.
Do you like immersive theater?
Yes.
Do you like escape rooms?
Yes.
What's the safe word?
My haunt life. Hello and welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
And Russell, we live in and around Los Angeles.
Yes, this is true.
And there's so much nowadays of things we like, whether it be haunts or immersive theater, interactive theater, escape rooms, etc., etc. But there was once a time when we didn't have this many options.
It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, there was a time when the only haunts that happened in October were things like Universal and Knott's and things like that. Mm-hmm. There weren't really immersive experiences back in that time.
Very true.
This was even a time before Blackout.
Yes.
Before you and I met. The golden years, I like to call them.
Wow, really? Already? So soon in the podcast.
But in 2011, something was created by a man that kind of changed the landscape. It gave people inspiration. It gave people ideas. It showed LA that horror and theater could be combined into something beautiful and magical and entertaining. And since then, it's kind of just blown up.
Yeah, the
because of it.
immersive scene has certainly exploded in the last few years. We've talked about that on other podcasts. We've talked about that in interviews when we've talked to people. And you just mentioned horror. I think so many of the immersive experiences, and I'm not talking haunts, but the immersive experiences in our area deal with really dark themes. They deal with death, they deal with murder, and they deal with horror elements. And I think, one show can be pointed to as paving the way for all of that and just bursting the doors open.
And that show, of course, is Delusion.
Absolutely.
And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Jon Braver.
Hey, how you doing? Okay. Hey, how you doing? So I just ruined that whole wonderful intro. That was very...
Or made it better.
True, very true. So you can do it in your serial killer voice if you'd like to.
I might play around with voices. I love voiceover stuff. That was a very sweet intro. Thank you very much. I like that. It was very epic too. The way you said it was like there was a man that created.
He came from a world with no immersive theater
To change the landscape in Los Angeles.
Oh, but
One
Mike and I
haunt
were
at a time.
Mike and I were talking before you came over this evening, and this was the conversation we had. Was, do you remember? It's like I remember my first time. The way I discovered Delusion was someone at work pointed me to, like, what is this thing? It's like, I'm the theater guy at work usually. So they're like, what have you heard about this? And I said, I've noticed the title is like, I just know there's something out there called that. And we got a group of work people together and went. And one of them is my best friend, and he and I just are the horror guys. We fell in love with Delusion, and we have been back every year you have had a show.
You came to the 2011 show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Both of us did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we found you.
Oh, that's right. Wow, that's so cool. Definitely OG. That's insane. That's wonderful. I love hearing that. Yeah, I remember it. I remember it very well. Like the very beginning of stages of it. It was very exciting and nerve-wracking because I was coming from a career in film and television, and I was doing pretty well with that, and then it just sort of, but this was something that was gnawing at me for so long, and I just was like, I gotta get this out of me, because I did in Chicago where I grew up. I used to do these little like mini Delusion kind of things, and I was putting it off for years and years. But yeah, 2011 was interesting because it was all new. There was nothing like it, and it was just, people were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I couldn't even explain it probably. Even this is 6 seasons of it now. Even explaining it now, I still have to explain it to people. Like, what is this thing? It's like, come on already. You should know what interactive theater is at this point. But yeah, that was super cool. I remember how we even got the name, because it used to be Haunted Play, and then we changed it to Delusion. because I heard the word delusion on the radio driving to the show one time, and I changed it, driving to rehearsals, and I changed it there. So that's fun. What do you remember about it? What was your what are your guys sort of as guests initial thought? I know you said you fell in love with it, but
I think for me, the fact that we entered a house, this mansion, and that was the year that you entered the whole like foyer, the huge with the staircase going up, correct?
right, yeah,
And you get the intro. Well, the exterior of the building was sort of an intro, and you met a character, and then you walked in, and there was more of an intro in that building, and a character kind of crept up on who, at that point, I thought was going to be the lead of the play. I thought they were going to be the person we follow, and somebody crept up behind them, and then they sort of flew away. And I just remember everyone in my group gasping because this woman literally looked up and took off in flight up 2 stories.
Yeah.
And we saw it live in front of us. And that was the moment I fell in love with Delusion. And it was an astounding moment because I had never witnessed anything quite like that, literally just a few feet from me.
yeah.
And it was a magical moment. So what do you remember, Mike?
I mean, that was the main thing. And again, this was a time when there wasn't anything. There might have been an Instagram back then, but people didn't utilize it the way it was today. So because I didn't have many friends in this that were into this type of thing, you know, having to search this out and find it, not knowing what it was, right? Like that in itself was like, oh my God, what is this? And then because I was so used to traditional haunts, like the Universals, like the Knots, like the conga lines, and going here is like, wait a minute, where's the 4,000 other people that are supposed to be like going through this, you know? And then seeing the small groups and then seeing someone up close and personal, not 20 feet away, just like, you know, fly away, like up the stairs. And it was just like, what is this magical thing? Like, why isn't there more of this? This is incredible.
I know. Yeah, that's so interesting because that seems to be the recurring theme is like that moment, that specific moment of that character on the stairs that flew up. And I remember rehearsing that, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun." Like, we were playing with the lighting and like making sure that you don't see the wire where you're standing, and trying our best to make it look like you don't see the mechanism. But it was that moment, I think, when I remember the very first show, like the first people to ever experience the delusion, like they walk in the house, and then once that character flew up the stairs, I heard all that gasping, you know, inside the house, and it was that moment, like right there, was like, oh shit, yeah, I think we're onto something here. Like this is kind of cool, and then it just expanded from there, and that was actually because jumping ahead to the 2012 thing, because that's when Neil Patrick Harris said the same thing. So he and I co-produced it in 2012. And he said the exact same story. He's like, when that person leapt up the stairs, I was like, I was hooked, and that was super cool. So, but it's been interesting. On a grander note, it's like there was a lot of talk about the stunt aspect of it, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. But over time, I always found that, and even from the beginning, the stunts and the action were incorporated into the story. It was never to be a showcase. It was never, that was very purposeful. And I remember getting some like heat in, what was it, 2013 or 2014, something like that. Like, oh, there weren't as many stunts. So you build up expectations, and it's like some people, you know, we at 2012, if you remember that show, that was nuts. There was so much shit happening, people crawling on the ceiling and flying all over the place. And then 2013 was not nearly as much. It's like, so I remember hearing about the lack of stunts. I was like, come on, guys, it's not about stunts. It's supposed to be a cool story. So.
And you got to wear a mask.
You got to wear a mask. That's right. The church show that was the worst experience of my life. Oh, it was horrible.
Go on.
Fucking horrible show.
We actually would like to touch on that subject in particular because one of the things I think people expect from Delusion now, you have this track record, and I want to say something that Mike just triggered in my brain. You know, you said that you weren't used to you were expecting a haunt, and you got this weird intimate relationship with these characters. And yet, John, you were just describing all of these stunts that were going on. And I think that's the key, that it's an intimate feel and then it has an epic scale at the same time. Mm-hmm. And because you tap into the characters so well, I think that's what people respond to. But let's talk about the locations. You have done really fascinating shows in a variety of locations. And you've done houses, you've done a church. And what is the location you're currently in?
Yeah, this is our first commercial space. Mm-hmm. Hence we can carry into, this spring season. This is a very classic, well-known yet not nightclub called Café Club Fée Dodo. And quick little note, Fée Dodo, French for go to sleep, which doesn't make any sense because you're trying to keep people awake in this club. I don't know why they named it that. Anyway, it's in the West Adams district, which seems to be the Delusion home, which is where we've done most of our shows anyway, except for the church one in Silver Lake. Mm-hmm. But this one is, an old sort of decrepit theater. And adjacent to it is a lounge, a really cool lounge that was big in the 80s and 90s. And now it's sort of having a resurgence with our show being there. We're trying to shine a spotlight on this classic venue, musical venue, by having different musical acts or spoken word or other kind of events over there. And so you're taken from the lounge and then brought into this weird old theater. But it's very different because I actually found it 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And I was like, this won't work for what we want to do traditionally, because this was coming from the homes that we were using, and those are about 7,500 square feet. And but this place just felt really small to me 2.5 years ago, and I was like, let's not do it, forget it. And we went through a bit of the leasing process too, and I just canceled it because I found another house to do the next show at. Mm-hmm. And then years went by, and I had a new idea for a time traveling show, and then I drove by this place again, and I was like, oh, I remember that place. I saw that a couple years ago. And it's actually close to my house too. And I was like, okay, well, this could work, because it was the front of the theater. If you drive by, it's very unassuming. It's like a rundown old theater, and we just said, okay, keep it that way. Let's just keep it that way, because it's very much like an abandoned kind of theater. So the idea of stepping into this space that seems like it's unoccupied, and then actually moving through time. Imagine my mind was going crazy with that idea of when you're done with the show, all the different time periods you went to, and you come back outside of the show and you stand in front of the theater, you're like, what the fuck? Oh my God, they did all that shit in there. Mm-hmm. All this crazy, they had this huge, I don't want to ruin it, but just all this grand set design inside this place. So it was just, it's unique to the story. I guess it worked for this story. Previous ones, it wasn't. So that's where we're at. That was the long version of it.
Yeah, I got tickled when going through the show, and I looked up and I realized, holy crap, I'm in an old projection booth, because the projection for the light to hit the screen are still in the walls.
They're still in the walls.
And I was like, wait. It's I'm and I looked around the room and I realized what you had done with the space. Wow, I know exactly what the layout for this was when it was a projection. I was a projectionist for a while.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, and I just looked at this and I know exactly, and I know why it's the size it is, and it was fascinating.
So who exactly tickled you?
So,
was it the actor or one of
my people? Yeah,
that's one of the
Give me a
secrets
name.
of Delusion. So
you do get tickled. 1 in 8 people get tickled in special places.
Tonight on Delusion, a tickle fest.
That's the next show.
Is that an upgrade on the cost of that ticket?
No, we'll do it for free for you. You come back.
Wow.
We'll tickle you everywhere. This
What
will
an
be
offer.
fun.
You're at TIP. Just the tip.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
Tickled important person.
Tickled. That should be a special ticket. Oh my God. The TIP. Yeah. They're like, so what's involved with the TIP? Well, you go to the show and you get tickled.
Yeah. Every scene.
Anything
It's just
else?
an endless tickling.
I bet you those would sell though.
Oh yeah, they would.
What's that documentary you told me about?
So, the show, the documentary Tickled.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the documentary Tickled?
No.
It premiered at Sundance the same year that the Blackout Experiments premiered at Sundance, and I caught it there. It's an amazing documentary that plays like a thriller.
It's about
We're really going to
killer?
digress on this. Wow, you really brought that up.
It sounds like a horror movie.
No,
The Tickler.
it's not. It's about a journalist. He also does the show Dark Tourist on Netflix. I believe he's a New Zealand journalist who found this odd website one day. He saw an advertisement for competitive tickling. And he was going to do a feature on, like, hey, what is this? Is this an erotic thing, or is it like serious? Like, are there really competitions? And so he reached out, and the response he got back was so ridiculously over the top, hate filled, like, how dare you even contact us sort of attitude, that immediately you do that to a journalist and they go, what's the real story? So he just decides to investigate this website, and he finds, I don't want to give too much away about this, because seriously, I highly recommend the documentary Tickled to anyone who hasn't seen it. He finds this whole ring of competitive tickling, and he traces the money, he traces the experience of the people who are involved, and it becomes a thriller. Lives are destroyed, people are terrorized, and it's all because he just sent this one email like, hey, what's this about?
Oh my God.
And the response that he got back was so ludicrously over the top that the journalist immediately knew there's a story here. And what he finds along the way is gold. Like, for a documentary filmmaker, like, he finds some stuff that you will not believe as it unfolds. And when you get to the third act of the documentary, it's like, what happens is amazing.
So, I mean, I'll see it, but what is the basic rules of competitive tickling, though? Are you trying to not laugh?
No, it's like how long can you endure?
Right. Okay. Yeah. How
It's
long?
an endurance thing.
There's a time. Okay.
Yeah, it's a time constraint.
Wow.
So, but yeah,
That sounds like a
fascinating
fun
documentary. Thank you, Mike, for taking us down that road.
Hey, you're the one who said you got tickled inside Delusion.
I love that. There should be a killer named the Tickler, though, I think. No, the Projectionist. We're getting totally off topic. But is there a movie called The Projectionist? That sounds like a good like.
I don't know. I know there's a movie called The Editor, because I'm an editor.
There you go.
And when you said Tickler, I immediately went William Castle's The Tingler, which has a scene where
Tingler, yeah.
the projection scene where the monster breaks loose and destroys the film in the projection booth of the theater that you're in.
Oh. No, but somebody should do a movie about a projectionist. Like, I was thinking 1 Hour Photo, which I love that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like the projectionist is alone in this room, and he's, there's something there. Anyway, sorry. Okay.
Back to our question.
Unless people just skipped over this part and just went right to, hey, welcome back to Delusion. I'm here with Russell and Mike. Hey, guys. I'm in your house. I'm not sure how the hell I got here, but we're having wine.
It's not the last time someone said that to me. So
Mike is not having wine. This podcast brought to you by Dr. Pepper. All right, sorry.
Location challenges in Los Angeles. You've had a few.
Oh yeah. Oh, Jesus.
You've been in so many different locations in different neighborhoods. What have been the challenges of producing such a large-scale, ambitious project in Los Angeles?
Well, I guess I can start out by saying that we're not welcome back in Council District 10, which is the West Adams district. These are old historic homes that we've taken care of, and we've been very good about it. But they just when we were running our shows in these mansions, that district, the council there just feels that we're trampling upon these old relics. And I mean, I get that, but we take meticulous care of these places. They really don't know the whole story, and we haven't communicated it properly. I mean, LA's been as wonderful as a cultural hub as it is for what we're trying to do. It's not very welcoming. Hence the creation of what the hell's it called? Noah's doing it. No one else. Leia.
Which is League of Experimental and Immersive Artists, I believe.
Yeah. And
I hope I got that right.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's what I want to say. Of course I want to say that. So it's been great because they're actually doing something about it. They're trying to get easier permitting and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it'll always come down to the neighborhood. I don't care how far we get with this whole thing. If a neighbor complains, that can be a problem. So to have to run a business where, as we did for 5 seasons in houses, except for one in a church. No, the church is the same thing because it was a residential place. We wouldn't get a permit till the week before. We wouldn't know if we can continue a show. We wouldn't know if we can honor the tickets.
Wait, you were
week
week
by
to
week,
week?
week to week.
That's horrifying for a business person.
I mean, I lost a lot of my life just worrying about that all the time, and just trying to appease the neighbors. You do as much as you can, but they still just don't want you there for some reason. Or in 2013, we have a church, and we didn't even know, but we stepped into this whole battle between the neighborhood and the owner of the church. She wanted to turn it into a boutique hotel. The neighbors hated her, and we went in, and they used us as sort of like a proxy campaign to show that, look what we can do. We can shut down anything that goes into your place. So they shut us down. We lost a lot of my own money, and should have just called it quits right there. But
thank you for not.
Yeah, but it was. The houses are great. I wish it was easier to stay in those. But I still felt like I needed to kind of, change things up a bit. There's a grander vision for this whole Delusion universe now too. So it's not, you can't continue to do this kind of stuff. We can't continue to do it in the houses and be up against the constraints of the neighborhood. It's just not practical anymore.
And are you finding now that you're in a commercial space that some of that has eased up?
Yeah, we haven't had any issues.
Great.
But those issues have been replaced with many other issues. But yes, the actual issue of the neighborhood has not been a problem because people are used to this theater. There's shooting there, film shoots, and there's music, and so they're used to it.
Right.
But this has been the most challenging year out of all of them. Even 2013. This one's the hardest.
Why is that?
We spent a lot of money on this build. You guys went to the show. You can see where that went. And we have to... Here's the thing that people should know. So whoever's listening... we have a $95 ticket, right? You think, these guys are doing really well. Complete opposite, guys. Like, it is... We sold out the whole fall season really quickly. Delusion was, thankfully, knock on wood, does really well in that season. People are not used to spring. They don't think about the spring in November. Nobody thinks about that. As proud of the show as we are and as excited as we are, it's just something that they don't really think about. So, we need to fill a demand because a lot of people still wanted to go, so we wanted to extend, but also at the same time, like, for us to actually make this, make any money on this thing, we have to continue to run it through the spring and through June. And so, we're banking on people getting really excited about it in November to buy tickets for February or March, April, May, June, but people don't really think that far ahead. We just we needed to get through the holidays, and we need to get to now, January, end of January, to start getting people to think more about February. And so we're starting to see a turnaround there. But it was really tough because it's like, how are we gonna? We have to push through. And again, it came down to the build. I mean, as I said, we spent a ton of money on it. It's completely my fault. Like, I wanted to do this grand. I'm always thinking big on all these things, and I'm like telling the team, okay, well, let's do a giant cave over here, and let's do a temple over here, and they're like, okay, well, sure. I think I need more of my producers to say no to me.
That's part of a producer's job, but...
Yes, it is. But anyway, I mean, look, my whole team, I have a new partners on this with Great Company. The Great Company is run by Carl Choi, and he has amazing people like Carl and Mary. And then on the Delusion side, I have Jackie and Kevin and Ian, and we all sort of came together to build this one, and we all believe in it. Like, it's a cool show. We were, it's better now. I personally went through like a really tough time with the script for a long time. I fell into this depression for a while. Because time travel was fucking with my mind, and then the build wasn't going to be done on time, and I was like, what the fuck, man? It's just like, it wasn't it's so hard to do these things, and it just it thrust me into this mental state that I'm glad I'm out of, but we're not completely out of the woods. I guess the point is like this. There's been a lot of appreciation for these kind of things. I think learning more about the inner workings and what it does to the actual artists is important. I think people should know that it's like we put every fucking thing we have, like our life savings into this thing. I mean, like this is something we do as a passion project. This has been a hobby, and we're trying to, turn this into something that's grander, like make it into an industry. Like interactive theater should exist throughout the year. And I think that this is an experiment. This whole run is an experiment in the spring. And if people want to, travel to other worlds with us, then, let's kick it into gear and start supporting the arts.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big ramble.
You just mentioned that this is an experiment. Just going back to, 2010, 2011, whenever you thought of doing the haunted play, was it an experiment to you then? Like, what sparked that I'm going to do this year? And like, how did all that come to be?
Yeah, it was a risk and an experiment. But I had a lot of confidence in the fact that like, of banking on the magic of the fall season and understanding that like I am a fan myself, and that I knew that people would be, as I'm writing it and walking through it for rehearsals, it was like, I'm sure people will like this. I mean, I really like it, and there's a lot of people like me out there, unfortunately. Yeah, it was an experiment as well too. So it's interesting that it's a good question. It's like you're experimenting them, and then now we're experimenting with a slightly different genre as well too. In that this one is not strictly horror based, it's more sci-fi, Raiders of the Lost Ark adventure kind of thing. So in my mind, it's like I love Halloween to death, and I've said this many times in many interviews. Like I'm not the biggest horror fan. Like I've seen a ton of horror movies and I enjoy them, but it's not my really preferred genre. That sounds a little off. I mean, I do enjoy it, but I like good quality horror. But anyway, my point is, I just like, my style is more fantastical, adventurous. And I feel, yes, the previous ones have been more like really scary. They've had a horror theme to it. But I want these stories to evolve into the fantastical genre and not just the horror genre. And I think that can exist at any time.
And I think that will hopefully lead to the success of what you were talking about, of as it runs into spring. I think that's part of the challenge. Is I'm working with someone right now who has a ticket for early February, I believe. He wasn't into the horror stuff. I think the announcement of the extension convinced him, like, oh, this is obviously something, it's not a haunt. And I keep telling him, yes, it's not a haunt. It's a play. You need to go do this. Mm-hmm. And he finally plunked down the money and bought the ticket. I think last week.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but
thanks, Russell.
I think what it is, I think it's the genre. I think when he understood that this isn't just, and he was looking at the website and he realized the sci-fi vibe, and I think that will appeal to more people, and I think it will help shift the attitude of this isn't just for Halloween anymore. Mm-hmm. That immersive can be other things. And Mike and I have joked about how everything in the last year in Los Angeles immersive seemed to be dealing with grief and death.
Well, that's something I want to talk about here. Actually, that's funny, because one big inspiration for doing this kind of show, besides like the adventure Raiders kind of Lost Ark time travel aspect, was that fact that I saw this entire immersive interactive theater stuff go in such a dark direction.
Oh yeah,
and it's so. I mean, there's nothing wrong with introspection and, tackling certain issues, but it was like, yeah, you're dealing with grief and sorrow and torment and torture and trauma. And I was like, I remember having a conversation with my producer, Jackie, and I said, look, I just want to write a show that's fun. Mm-hmm. I want it to be fun. I want people to just go on this cool grand adventure, and they leave and they're exhilarated. I don't want to torment them. I don't want to dive deep into the psyche with them and pull out their childhood trauma. I just sure there's a place for that, but that's not my style. And I just felt like this movement, this genre needed something like this, needed something lighthearted and fun. That's not to say that this isn't. We talk a lot about how it's not horror, it's not that scary. There are scary moments in this one.
Yeah.
And actually, the director's cut that I'm finishing now, this is a scarier show than the fall show, which is funny. Like there are, I think, especially towards the end, there's more of a scary element to it, but it's fine. I mean, look, it is what it is, but it's definitely sci-fi adventure. We need to get a whole new audience, and our delusional fans, they come to the show, we can rely on them. But to make this a real thing, like a more sustainable thing, we got to appeal to like a lot more people.
Right. You brought up the director's cut. Do you want to go into that a little bit? Because we're actually recording this on the day of the official announcement.
The trailer.
In a world filled with desire.
Buy your TIP ticket.
But you do have a director's cut of The Blue Blade coming.
So director's cut of The Blue Blade. We opened February 14th, and it's there are things that I wanted to do that I wasn't able to do for the fall. There's still a lot more I want to do that we can't do just because, it's time and budget and all that stuff. But this is going to have a new character in it, some new interaction by the audience with certain props and some different challenges. There's some different motivations in some of the characters. I mean, the major stuff is more towards the end, the alternate ending. But where I have the audience, this is funny because every year we put so much trust in the audience. You guys go into the show, we have to trust that you guys will act accordingly and that you won't, destroy the set or stab one of our actors. Mm-hmm. And every year I'm thinking, God, we just have to like pare it down a little bit and just not just dumb it down, but like make sure that the audience is never really left alone. And I just took my own advice and threw it out the fucking window on this. And I'm like, okay, well now there's a sequence in this that's like you're on your own, and my team hates me for doing it. But I think it's going to be fun for people. So if you're listening and you're going to go to the show, just our main rule is just don't be a douche.
I think
Please.
I think that's a very good rule in general to keep in mind as you're going through any immersive experience.
Yeah, just
because
be
I've gone
respectful.
through immersive experiences with some of them.
Yeah, I'm sure it ruins.
Why did you look at me?
Yeah, he was looking right at him.
So I'm not saying anything.
So will the director's cut be every show of the run or only select dates?
Yeah, it's the whole run. Yeah, that's it. It's gonna be fun.
Oh, and I know we will say this at the end, but we will have links and information available on our webpage to direct people to those tickets.
Sweetness.
So looking forward to seeing it, man. Seriously looking forward to seeing it.
Me too. I'm excited to see this thing like manifest in some way. Yeah, before I even came in here, I was talking to Kevin Williams, the production designer. I'm like, we were just going through the list of things I wanted to do, and we had to like pare some things down too because we're like, oh shit, we don't have the money for that. So literally just before we recorded this. So, but yeah, it's fun, man. I mean, this show has grown on me from the beginning. When you're so close to a project, you don't like it anymore. Mm-hmm. And that happened with this one in the beginning. I was like, I wasn't into it, but then I had to keep stepping back and be like, I've been too close to it for so long. And now it's like being able to revamp it has had some like renewed excitement for me, and I'm hoping for the people who come to the show. So come on out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm recommending it to everyone, and I'm recommending it. A lot of my coworkers went. I literally, the last time I talked to you was the night when I my coworkers, we bought an entire block.
I remember
that. Which was great because I was able to get people together who from various walks of my life. Mm-hmm. I was like, wait, this is the person I've talked about. And Delusion was the perfect venue for getting friends together. And like, because like we met and talked beforehand, and I introduced people, and it was awesome. And then we went on this wonderful adventure, had a blast, and then came out and was talking about it the rest of the night. So it became a really bonding experience for a new group of friends.
That's so cool.
Delusion was great. That was a great night.
That'd be fun. It'd be fun to actually like be in your shoes where you're actually bringing new people and they just have no clue about this whole world. So I mean, you guys have been very big supporters of it. So both of you guys, I appreciate
Thank you.
what you've done over the years and to help spread the word. So thank you.
Out of all the Delusion shows, do you have a favorite, or are they like children where you're not allowed to choose one?
I think there are elements of every show. It's hard to say like my favorite one of all. I think the one that sort of encapsulates the style the most for me would probably be Lies Within, 2014. Though this one would be very close to that, even though they're a bit different in terms of tone and all that. But yeah, I think anything that's fantastical. I keep going back to that word. Like that's, the Terry Gilliam, the live practical creature effects. I like to employ real creature effects, for these things. Like people, never get to see this stuff live. But I think, yeah, that show, Lies Within and this one, might be my two favorite ones. The Vampire Show was pretty wicked too. I thought that was fun. God, the 2012 show was, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, elements. I think elements. Like if you were to ask me, okay, what are your favorite moments from each one, I could probably pick those out. And when they worked. And yeah, I think one of my favorite things is definitely working with Jim Banky. He's our creature effects guy. So to create these characters that exist right in front of you, that just manifest in front of you, and something you've never seen before. And I mean, that's the benefit of coming from the film world, was like, I have great contacts that are willing to do these cool side projects for friends and family rates. Because the creature stuff you guys have seen over the years, like that would have been like most of our budget. And these guys are coming in to do it for pennies. And I have to find the right actors who can perform in these creature suits for 5 hours.
Right.
And not complain about it. I mean, this year, this show, you guys saw there's a big creature in this one. And you gotta have we should spend a whole show on the actors. I want the actors to listen to this, because you guys they're the heart of this, man. The actors for Delusion are just fucking mind-blowing. They are, I think, and maybe I'm biased, they're the best in the field when it comes to this sort of medium. They're on it every show. There's no complaints. They bond together. I mean, every theater company bonds together in some way, but like these people are they go to battle every night, and they bring it every night consistently. And I'm just blown away by it. I don't know how they do it. What do you guys think of the actors?
Well, I've seen The Blue Blade twice so far this season, and I do plan to come back. And you connect with certain people, and you have certain actors in your show that I recognize from other shows.
Oh yeah,
and I have no problem. I never see them as other than what they are in front of me, if that makes sense. And I just remember being delighted. Like every time I walked into a room, it was like, I get to play with this person right now. I get to spend however many minutes with this person because I know they're the best at what they do. And just as a patron who goes to a lot of immersive theater, Mike and I talk about this all the time. Of like, oh, did you notice so-and-so, was in that show?
It was a small family.
Small
community.
But I fell in love with them in a different way than I've ever seen any of them before. And one of them in particular, I was just, I don't want to single one person out, but yeah, there's like, I did have a moment with one actor in particular. It was just like,
you can single them out. They would love it. They would love to. Is
James.
James Carrick,
James,
the android character.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's just like, and I've seen, I've
James
seen
is
multiple
amazing.
actors perform that role. Very different, which I loved. Very cool interpretations, but it's like, and Dasha, and like she walked into the room. I've never seen her perform a role like she performs in The Blue Blade.
Yeah,
And I think
know.
I think that's something I was going to point out is we've always seen her like be nice and say like a fortune teller or something like that, very spiritual, but it's just pure evil. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude, I was talking to her today. That's just like, we all see. She's like, if I've done anything right, it is if I can go down in history as like discovering Dasha Kittredge for the interactive theater world. Like that's I'll go down in history as like of discovering her, because she's the fucking queen of interactive theater. Like she's spectacular in so many ways. But I wanted to throw her into like a darker kind of role and like throw on a wire too. Like she goes flying.
Oh yeah.
Spoiler. Yeah, I know. I keep spoiling shit all the time. But you gotta see it live. You hear about it now.
Oh yeah.
Here, you're reading this is the audiobook, and then you come see it.
That was another gasp-worthy moment in especially the first time I went through with her. It was just like, I did not see that coming. Where her character goes, I did not see that coming.
I know, yeah. So you should see her fly from behind the scenes, like the way she flies too. She's got this whole like super. She even lands like a super. The one arm up and like one arm down. She's got that shit down.
I'm trying to remember who played the detective the night, but that's someone else who I've encountered before.
With the hat, like Stanfeld in the beginning. That you
Yes.
follow, the guy you
Yeah.
follow. So we have we double cast every role, right? And I have so many different actors. So that's enough of a reason for any theater lover to come back. Like even if I did the exact same show and you came back again, you saw different actors, it's a different show.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I don't even have to do anything. You just come back and you just see a different actor. It changes everything. So we have, like you were mentioning, James and there's people play Carrick, James, Alex, and a few other people, and these guys they each bring their own energy and their own flavor to this character, and stuff that, I write this stuff, and then all of a sudden, when I put it in their hands, they bring it. I know it sounds trite, but like they bring it to life, but they don't just bring it to life, but they evolve it in ways that I never even contemplated. And these guys do shit with that character that I could never have thought of. So I'm glad you got to see James. James is great. Come back, see the other guys like Ian or Alex, and
I think Alex was the other one I saw, and that was the interpretation of the roles was so different. I was like, this is fascinating to watch. I'm so glad I came back and saw a different cast.
Yeah, I'm glad you did too. That's when you come back again, you guys. Hopefully, we'll have another different one, because we have like the Eves. We have so many different Eve characters, and that was a bit of a spoiler. Okay, let's move on. Shit, we've been drinking some wine.
Do you want more?
I'm good for now.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah, please just speak up.
Yeah. Okay, fine. I'll have another glass. But we're going to pause for a commercial break. This is not just brought to you by Dr. Pepper. It's brought to you by Longhorn Valley Wine, 2016. A wonderful year. Russell's bringing it back.
It's very tasty.
Listen to him pour it. Can you hear this? Longhorn Valley. A better wine. Only $3.99.
For a better person.
Where do we go from here?
So what? You do with different voices. All right. The rest of the show will be done in the old New York voice. How you doing? All right, here you go. Let's start over. Hey, it's Jon Braver here from Delusion. I'm here with Russell and Mikey. So, when I walked in here first, you were playing a game, Mikey. What game were you playing?
I was playing Dead by Daylight.
And is that a violent game?
It is very violent.
Did your mom know you're playing violent games?
Yeah,
Does she approve?
she does. It made me who I am today.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Did you come here alone?
No, I have two guards outside. Two big bodyguards outside.
How soon will it be before anyone notices you're gone? I mean, how long have you got?
Okay, what was the address again here? If you're listening, please come and help me. This is not a podcast. Please. Shit, Mikey's getting up. He's going to get a knife or something. No, wait. No, just a second. I didn't mean any of that. No, wait.
Mike, we have to let him go. We have to finish the like talking on the podcast.
I want a Delusion radio show, and this is the only way to make it happen.
Yeah, we should do like a regular Delusion radio.
Valid point. I'm down with this. Oh. Wait, where were we going?
So
Talking about my death.
You're a man of many voices, apparently.
I love voiceover.
You are a writer, a director. You've done stunts, a stunt coordinator, stunt performer. What else do you do, and how did you get into the business?
What else? I make really good breakfast. What else do I do? I'm a father to a 9-year-old, so that's the greatest thing I do. How did I get into the business? I was when I was going to school, and I went to music school. I'm a guitar major, and so I play guitar since I was 16, and I was going to be a professional musician. And
Did
then
not see that coming.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that was my dream. Like, that was it. If anybody's ever heard of Joe Satriani, he's an amazing guitarist, and he was sort of my mentor. And then I discovered, and I was also teaching gymnastics in Chicago. So I was a gymnastics coach.
What?
I was a gymnast in high school and a musician, and then and then I went to music school in Chicago. And then at the same time, to pay the bills, I was a gymnastics coach. And then I discovered Jackie Chan. This is before anybody knew who Jackie Chan was, so I'm kind of aging myself a bit.
I before Jackie Chan movies ever got American releases,
Yeah.
a friend and I used to drive out to Alhambra because there was one theater in Alhambra that would play Jackie Chan movies.
What? Oh my
and they
God.
would play the foreign releases that they had English subtitled them. So the English subtitles were hysterical because it was someone whose English was their second language was subtitling the movie.
Oh my God, that's like a Mystery Science Theater episode.
It was
Like that-
it was awesome. The first time I ever saw Super Cop 2.
Yeah.
Which in this country, I always forget where it was released as Super Cop and Super Cop 2, but
Yeah.
like first time I ever saw that was before it got an American release, several years before it got an American release.
Oh my God,
Because there was one theater out in Alhambra that would play them because people in that neighborhood spoke the language.
Oh my God, man! You were very lucky to be able to see it on the big screen.
Seeing those on a
'Cause that,
screen?
I don't know how I would go and I went to Chinatown in Chicago and I'd get them in Laserdisc, and my friend would, and then we'd go to his house and nobody knew. God, I wish I was you at that time. So I just I would get these. I get these movies. I go back to my friend's house and we watch them, and I was blown away. Like Jackie Chan was like the choreography and it was mesmerizing. And I used to do that kind of shit in gymnastics. I was, flipping around and doing weird stuff and like that. And I was like, people get paid to do this kind of thing. And during this time, also, I was doing these like mini Delusion kind of things in my parents' house. And the city of Chicago heard about it, and they hired me to do a show in an old clock tower. So I did this like cool this creepy show in a clock tower, and I hired all my gymnastics kids that I would coach. I brought them in to play parts in the show. And this was 1998, and then I did that show there, and then I decided during the show, this is an interesting story, I watched this movie, Mask of Zorro. You remember that one with Antonio Banderas? And I said, okay, well, people get paid like Jackie to go and to do these stunt action sequences. And so I watched that movie, and I picked a name out of the stunt credits. The guy's name was Webster. Webster Winery is his name. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting name. I have a cousin out in L.A. I'm going to move to L.A. after this show, and I'm going to find Webster. And he's going to give me my first job. And I was just so determined. And I packed everything up, and we finished at that time it was Haunted Play, and finished the show. And my best friend and I, Danny, we drove cross country, and I moved in with my cousin. And then 6 months later, after I put together like a demo reel for action sequences and stunts, I tracked down this guy Webster, and I told him the story. I told him like, sorry man, like you have to do this. You have to hire me. And we laughed about it a bit, and then I didn't hear from him for a couple months, and then I get a call from him, and my first ever film was House of a Thousand Corpses, and that was I was doubling Chris Hardwick. And
Wow.
he gave me my first job. And then at that point, it just sort of snowballed, and then I just started working like nonstop at that point. And that's how I got into the stunt business. But the whole time as I was going along, the Delusion thing was sort of in the back of the mind. And
So you just mentioned smaller productions. That sounds like that was the germ of Delusion, was the small shows that you said you put on in your parents' house. Were you,
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like you were a home haunter per se.
No, it's
Like you were talking about plays, right?
this. I mean, from day one, it was 1996, in my parents' house. Yeah, my parents stayed in a hotel for the weekend, and I basically kicked them out. And I wrote a play that was it was 10 minutes long, and the neighborhood in Chicago would just come and they'd line up and they would go through the house, and it was basically what you see now. It was just obviously a lot more amateur, and just friends would act in it, but it was a play. I mean, from the beginning, I was never, and I always say this, and I have to preface it by saying I'm not, I don't, there's a place for, haunted houses are great. There's some really great things. They're just not for me. I don't enjoy haunted houses. I don't like going to them. It's just my thing. There's a lot of people that do. But from 96, I was like, I just want to create, like, I used to play big role-playing games, and like, and I at that time I loved, Aliens, the movie Aliens. I was just like, I'm going to create something that's like got a lot, great story and great action, and I'm going to put it in the house, and people are going to move through the house, and it was just that was it. It was like, let's just create an adventure in the house and just have people coming through, but in groups and playing parts in the story. That was it. That was the beginning of it. It was pretty wild.
That's awesome.
10 minutes. And then
that's an awesome inspirational story, man.
It was fun. That was super fun. And we ruined my parents' house, and then I moved next door the next year.
Yeah. We kind of digressed, but where Mike kind of led you.
Sorry.
You did all that. You've done a lot of television work. You've done a lot of film work. Out of curiosity, is there a particular stunt that is your favorite that you've performed, or a sequence that you've helped create on film that is a personal favorite?
For sure. It was Indiana Jones, the last Indiana Jones movie, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Mm-hmm. Is not a marvelous film, but me and a group of guys, we sort of choreographed the action for the first 15 minutes of that movie, the whole sequence when Indy's escaping from the Area 51 area with all the crates. So all that action is sort of our team, and look, that was the dream. Like I would get up in the morning and I'd work with Spielberg and Harrison Ford, and it was like we were working closely with these guys. And I have great stories with Spielberg and Harrison. I mean, Harrison and I there's a scene where I'm coming after him with a gun, and he and I would go rehearse where he'd take the whip and have to like rip the gun out of my hands. And the whole time I'm like, please God, just cut my arm. I want a scar. So I would actually, like, with the gun, I would lean into to his whip closer and closer, and he kept telling me, like, back up, Jon, back up, you're getting too close. I'm like, it's fine, because I no joke, I wanted him to cut me. I want that story. But anyway, I do have a great story anyway. So he and I worked on the whole whipping scene, and every time I'm sitting there looking at him 10 feet away from me in the whole Indiana Jones garb with the whip, working with me, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I get up in the morning and I work with my hero, the reason why, like, I exist in this film world, and the reason why the Blue Blade exists, the reason why lots of all this stuff exists is because of Spielberg and Harrison Ford and Raiders and this whole series. And so working with these guys, I mean, I learned so much from Spielberg. I'd sit there and talk to him about, his process. Like, it was basically film school, but, far better. So I got to watch him work, and I just learned a lot in terms of directing, because that's sort of my main gig is directing now. So everything I do is I think back to that, what I learned from him. And going back to what you were asking, what's a favorite stunt? If you go back to the movie, there's a scene where, there's all that action in the warehouse is great. But there's a scene, and it happens really quick, but where Harrison is escaping from all the Russian guards, and he jumps into this Jeep where Cate Blanchett is. So Cate Blanchett's driving this Jeep. He jumps onto the Jeep, grabs her and throws her out of the Jeep, and then he takes over, and he crashes through a wall of crates. You have to kind of go back and watch this, but like there's this massive wall of crates, and he goes driving right through it and pulls like a 90 slide right through the crates, and me and 3 other guys are on the other side of the crates, and the whole wall of crates just explode. I mean, it's giant. This fucking thing is giant, and it's all rigged with special effects like explosives. They blow up the whole wall into our faces, and we're all on wires, and we all go spinning out of the way as Indy comes crashing and swiping us through. And then he takes off, drives off, and the camera lowers to the shot of the arc. You remember this?
Yeah.
You see the arc in the crate? So that was my favorite stunt, and I remember seeing the arc inside of the crate, like as we're sitting there, shooting, and I'm just on break. I would just sit there and stare at the arc.
It's real.
I'd be like, man, that's the arc right there. So
Has
it was insane.
have any of them been through Delusion, since it was there's such a big inspiration for it?
Oh, those guys? No, I think we would have known about those guys coming through, but no, they haven't. I wish they would. I want all my inspirations to come through, like Tim Burton and Guillermo del Toro and all those guys. I want them all to come through. It's hard to get them through, these guys, to get a hold of them. They got busy schedules, but we've had other celebrities come through. I know Neil was one of them who helped in 2012. He and I worked closely together to really make this pop, in 2012.
And he's become a wonderful advocate for immersive theater.
He has. He just needs to tweet about it a little bit more. I need a little tweet help. Would be great, Neil. Please, just come on. We work together. Let's do this. But Neil's like a fast-moving train. The guy does everything, and then along his life train, certain people jump on the train for a little bit, and then they jump off.
Yeah, and he's been directing, and he's been doing all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, he's a talent, man. That guy's big inspiration for me. So a lot of cool stunts. There's been some really great action sequences that we've done, but the Indy was probably obviously. I mean, look, that's like.
Is there one that you haven't done yet that you would love to do on film? A fall.
Oh, I don't want to do any stunts anymore. No, I'm done. I'm done with stunts. It's just I want to go behind the camera, directing. That's it. That's it. I'd rather not do. I don't want to jump through any windows or any shit like that anymore.
You mentioned your inspirations. I think a lot of the LA scene, even places in the country overall, can point to you as their inspiration to starting something. Like, how does that feel as a creator, starting in your parents' house to creating things that sell out within like hours, like a whole run, to people creating things because you created something?
Yeah, it's very flattering. I think that's. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I haven't really processed that. I think it's as I said, flattering. That's great that you can sort of help steer an industry, and I guess. But it's cool to see how many things have sort of spawned from that. I've had a lot of people reach out that are interested in this field, and we've had long talks about it. And guys like Justin Fix, Justin Fix does Creep, and he's a great guy, really smart, real passionate guy. And he reached out a couple of years ago about Delusion and how he got into it, kind of stuff. And then now I see that he's running Creep, and Creep's doing really well. And then he runs The Willows and all these other shows. And so that's makes me really happy to see that kind of stuff happen. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I don't really equate. Maybe the way you're saying it, Mike, is like, how does it feel to help inspire all this stuff? I don't feel like. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I don't feel like I maybe really even maybe I did inspire some people to do this stuff, but I'm still like trying to inspire myself to do these things. So I feel like I'm still one of them, and just like I don't really. I'm constantly trying to grow, and I don't really see this as like. I know that we put ourselves out in the public as like, we put in the trailer, the vanguard of interactive theater, like the ones who started it all. But that's all sort of marketing kind of stuff. And I guess there's some truth to that. But I don't know, maybe it's modesty. I don't know. I just don't. I don't think about it too much.
Well, I think it's a tough question to answer, but I think, from Mike's perspective and my perspective, I think part of it is we have gratitude. And I think the LA scene has gratitude for what Delusion was when it first appeared on the scene and what it has become. And over the years, you have changed and you have transformed. Delusion has changed. You mentioned getting the feedback of not enough stunts. It's like that comes from people loving what you did the year before. That comes from people looking at you going, they are the standard to look for. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I think if anything, it's like, I love having this opportunity to say thank you, because it means a lot to us as fans and patrons. And, Mike and I have both worked in haunts and have done immersive theater and, and everything from role playing to theater scenes and acting classes or whatever. It's like, it's a creative process, and you're an inspiration that will lead somewhere sometimes if we choose to pursue it, because you chose to pursue it.
Well, that's very sweet. That's very sweet. That tickles me. I feel like a TIP.
Nice callback. Wow. Wow, that's a pro, ladies and gentlemen.
That's very, that is very sweet. I mean, it's been a crazy ride. I mean, I still feel like we're, like you were talking earlier about the whole, we didn't expect too many, we wanted more stunts or something like that. Like this show, the Blue Blade, it's funny because we're constantly trying to evolve and change things and, try new things. They could fail. Sure. They can succeed. I don't know. But this show, I knew, it's a bit of a tangent, but, I knew that we would get pushback in October, especially, to be like, it's not scary enough. I just was like, okay, I told the whole team, just weather the storm. There's going to be some people that are going to be like, this isn't that scary. It's fine. Let's just keep pushing through, because to me, like, honestly, to me, Halloween is just about adventure. It's about magic. It's about horror. Yes, it's about sci-fi. It's about all the wonderful things that encompass, like, all the escapism that we want in our lives or in that season. So I was like, just weather that storm. It wasn't that bad of a storm. It was like a light drizzle. And because certain people really understood. They're like, well, yes, you did a lot of horror-based stuff before, and this one is not as much, but it's cool. I welcome that. Like, I welcome the fact that you tried something new, or you tried a slightly different genre in some way. And I think those people, that's what we're kind of playing for, is like those kind of people. And there's plenty of those people out there. And so, there's plenty of people out there that have never heard of Delusion before. There's thousands, hundreds, how many people live in LA? Like, they've never heard of it before, and they're all geeks and they want to do this kind of stuff. So we got to get the word out to those people. So I know your viewership is, you guys got a lot of people listening, so let's do that.
Tweet, everyone, tweet now.
Yeah.
Talking about delusion and expectations, like we keep saying stunts. And in the past, Delusion has featured fights. It's featured wire work. It's featured falls from multiple story buildings, which that was another one of those moments where that happened. And I was like, my jaw just dropped. Like, I just saw someone fall off of, what was it, a 3-story building?
Sure.
You talked about your ambition. What is the most challenging thing that you have managed to bring to life?
This show.
The Blue Blade?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This has been the most challenging.
The Blue Blade is non-stop. it moves and there's so many surprises along the way. It's like, why do you say the Blue Blade?
Well, it's the most challenging because we had 6 weeks to build it, and we didn't have all the money to build it. I mean, you can have another podcast with Kevin Williams, the production designer, who lost many years of his life and to make this happen. It was a very ambitious show. You talk about time travel, like, yeah, it depends on what time period you go to, but we go, in this show you go way back in time, and that was not cheap. But I will say there was a set piece for this show that was the ending of the show, and it was really badass and awesome. And we ordered this piece, and we had it designed and everything, and the shipping company or the manufacturer messed it up, and it was going to get pushed 2 months. And so there was no possible way in Earth that we would have gotten this set piece in time. So I had to rewrite the entire ending because it was it was massive. It was a massive piece. So, I don't want to say that one because I might try to bring it back if we get investment. This was the hardest one. It's just, but I don't know, maybe it's like the last thing you do, you sort of remember, like, how you're drunk and you're like, I'm never going to drink again. And then you end up doing it again, the next night or something like that. This one is the most recent, hence the most difficult, I guess. But 2016 had a bunch of shit happen to us too. I mean, we had the whole thing designed and we were about to go in and build. And then the owner of the house decided on a whim to rip out all of her walls in the entire house.
What?
She just tore them down because she saw some fire damage in one of the walls, and she said, "I'm just going to be safe. I'm going to rip down all the walls." So then she called me on the phone. She's like, "Jon, listen, don't panic. We'll get it all back up for you, but we had to take out all the walls." And we just lost our shit at that point. Kevin and I and Jackie and all that. We were just like, okay, that was a nightmare. But venue owners are the single driving force of like the stress in my life. The venue, the homeowners that we've dealt with, the landlords, they just make fucking life miserable for us. And I don't care if you're listening. Just fucking hear my voice and make shit easy for us, okay?
At the risk of bringing even more anxiety to the conversation. What's your relationship with fire marshals?
Actually, we've had great relationships with fire marshals. I will say that.
Good.
So it's the opposite of anxiety. Like these guys have been great because they now there was no sort of permitting or process for what we're doing, right? But from 2011, we made friends with the fire marshals, and they began to understand what we're doing. So they worked with us to make sure that like we can still retain some kind of quality and integrity into the show, and still stay safe. This year we haven't had to deal with that too much because it's a commercial venue.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. Having had experiences like working in haunts, and the key is work with them in advance. That's absolutely the key.
Yes. Make them feel like they're a part of the process. Don't hide. The minute you try to hide something from them, it's like you're screwed. So yeah, if you can be on the level with them, that's great. But yeah, every show has a challenge. Every show is a real challenge. This is not new to anybody who works in the business, as you know. It's not easy. I will say that, like, not to like bring a downer here, but like it's going to be very hard to continue sort of this path of like of the current. This is a big thing to say, but like the current format of Delusion, it's very difficult to like sustain financially. We have a very small amount of people that come through the show, 120 people a night, even at $100 ticket. Even at like the build costs. I mean, if we can keep build costs really, really low, then it could make sense. This one's really, really high. So financially, it's creatively, I think it's fun. It's a good success. Financially, it's not so much yet. But I think that's the key. Is like I have opportunities for a show in Vegas, and another company is courting us to kind of come into their fold right now, and I have to sort of balance what's made Delusion very special mixed with I would love to actually make a living off this thing, because it's hard. It's hard. It got so quiet and depressing there for a moment. Let's take a break.
Well, not quiet and depressing.
No,
it's
I'm just kidding.
It's not.
It's not.
It's part of what it is.
It is what it is. That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
there's like going back to Delusion for a second.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm here.
For those people who've never had the opportunity to go through Delusion, it is an interactive play that you go on this adventure. You go through a location. It's not a play that you sit and you watch. You participate in it. You're asked to do things. You interact with actors in a very specific manner. Quite often, you're told to perform tasks. You are given things to carry, and like all of this happens, and it's happened in every Delusion show. But part of the success, I think, of Delusion for me in the past is your sound design and your music. Talk about, because you have an original score, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about designing and how you reach what you reach. How do you design sound and a score for a show where your audience and your cast is quite often moving very quickly through a space?
Yeah. I always love it when people talk about the sound of music, because the sound and
Robert Wise.
because it's my favorite film.
Not one of my favorite films of Robert Wise, but he is an awesome director.
The Hills Have Eyes. The Hills Are Alive, or is The Hills Have Eyes? I'm not sure which one it is.
Both classic.
Yes. Well, okay. So my assistant director and creative supervisor, Victor, he and I have been through this from the beginning. Like, to me, Delusion is half visual and half sound. Like, some of the most fun times I'll ever have are doing sound design for this. So Victor and I do sound design for it, and my composer is Sid, who lives in Denmark. So he writes his music, and he has and I also pull some of his older stuff, and I throw them into the show and rework them. But this is a very interesting process, and it's something that's easily overlooked because you're not seeing it with your own eyes. You're people who can appreciate it like yourselves. Like that's why we did the VR. Well, it's not one of the reasons. We have a VR project that we did on Lies Within, and when you're in the VR, you're basically inside of the movie. You're actually hearing everything I've wanted you to hear in the live show in the VR. So that is incredibly one of the biggest moments for me. The biggest uplifting moments for me was for the VR thing was that you can now hear what I've always wanted you to hear. But that said, the process for the sound design is super intricate but very fun. So it starts with Victor and I going through the script in my house, and I will talk about the mood of the scene, kind of what style of music I kind of want in that space, what's the sound design that surrounds that, all the action that's going on, and then I time it. So I'll walk through in my house and pretend I'm the audience in the space, and Victor will have a timer, and I will guess as to how long this scene will take. And so I will sort of walk through my living room and imagine I'm doing everything the guests are going to do. And I will, in my head, imagine there's a speaker over here and over here that will sort of enhance the design, enhance the story in the way that I want it to. Nothing's perfect, but in terms of placement of speakers, I will sort of imagine it, as well as going to the venue, obviously, and looking at the space itself. But when we're designing the sound, we're in my house. So I will think it through, walk it through, and then outline the entire show, track by track, and and sound design, like written out in bullet points. What's supposed to happen at approximately minute 120, and then that's when the creature arrives, and that's when I need this to happen. So I will basically, make a long story short, I will score each scene, and with my composer, as well as sound design with Victor, the entire sequence as if it's a movie, and then figure out the best placement for the speakers. and then we will think about how are we going to achieve every moment. Like, obviously you can't force people. You can do your best to get people to move from one place to another, to do certain things, but actors are very much in control of moving the sound design forward too. So they are actually hitting buttons that you don't see.
Wow.
That are
Did not realize that.
Yeah, that are sort of like advancing a track forward. So once you reach a certain point of the story, there's a hidden button where an actor will hit it, which will, everything's tied to show control system. So Ian Momey is our sound and our lighting and tech designer. And so he has show control systems. So the entire show is rigged to a computer. And he can fire off any sound effect he needs from the computer. But if necessary, if an actor misses a cue, but an actor will I will say, I'll tell Victor in my living room, I'll be like, okay, well, we're designing this. And then all of a sudden the creature comes at this point. This is another track. So the actor's we're going to have to hide a button here, and the actor's going to have to secretly hit the button, and that will dissolve into the next track and carry this story forward. So it's all meticulously designed like a film, also practically and technically designed for live theater, and for actors to be able to progress things forward, as well as actors to be able to not just press a button, but to actually make sure that they hear a certain cue within the score, and then make sure that they have the audience in this position. It's all like crazy thought of. So the score for this year is like pretty epic as well too. And every year it gets kind of nuts, but it's a crazy design. And then I brought in a new person to help design with this as well too, is Katie Jost, and she and I and Victor kind of worked out the whole show. So I mean, you see it. It's like it's scoring a film. It's really scoring a film. It's nuts. I'm gonna take a drink right now. Hang on. Yeah, we put a lot of love into it, and even just like you think about the action, there's certain moments. Let's say somebody gets like hit and flown through the air. That is accentuated and punched up by sound effects. Like they have to hit their cue and fly through the air at the same time you hear the whoosh, or the crunch of a punch, or there's a scene in 2016 in the Vampire Show, if you guys remember that, where there's at the end of Act 1, there's a big scene in the foyer, and the audience gets at the bottom of this foyer, and they're looking up to this mid-landing of a staircase, and they see this incestuous brother up there, and the sister is down there with you, and they have this whole back and forth, and then he telekinetically like chokes her, and then he throws her through a wall, and she goes, you guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
So she gets thrown through this wall, and that sound effect of a wall exploding has to time with her crashing through the wall. So somebody has to hit the cue, or they hear a certain cue baked into the actual score, and then the actor knows that that's when he needs to choke, and then when he flicks his wrist to throw her, that is another cue within the sound design. So I send the actors the musical tracks to listen to before the show, so they get it in their heads. So I mean, it's kind of nuts because you have to like time somebody flying through the air to break through a wall that actually has to time to the sound effect. Like, it doesn't happen perfectly every time for sure, but when it does happen, it's like, holy shit! Like, it's insane.
So I'm glad you said that about sending, because in my head I was going, how long are your dress rehearsals?
Not nearly long enough. Not nearly long enough, man. It's crazy. I mean, the days are long, but we always need a lot more rehearsal. The first weekend, that's why we have preview weekends. The sound design, I love it. Have you seen the VR series? Have you?
I saw the trailer. I recently got an Oculus, so I was able to see the trailer when it dropped, but I haven't seen the movie.
Oh yeah, it's super cool.
I did see in the trailer one of my favorite scenes from any Delusion show is there's a creature that's included from Lies Within.
Oh yeah,
that's also I guarantee you I know what you're talking
Yep.
about. That's also one of my favorite scenes ever in Delusion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can say who. I'll spoil it. Yeah, obviously there's the puppet master. that I imagine. Oh wait, maybe not that guy. Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
All right, so we won't spoil that one.
Yeah, for me, it's not
Yes,
the puppet
okay,
master.
It's not the puppet
somebody
master.
else.
It's
So.
some other. Yeah, she's hot. Okay, put it that way. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Well
But, yeah.
played.
Yes, check out that series because it's.
Well,
it's
let's
super
talk
cool.
about the VR. It's
Yeah,
like,
was-
how do people? It's like you've released the trailer. The trailer's fascinating. Lies Within is one of my personal favorites of Delusion. I got to break into a house thanks to you. That was so cool.
Oh yeah, everybody wants to do that thing. I know.
So,
That's so true.
I've never done that before.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Isn't that what this is all about? Like that's it. That's why I love doing stunts. Like, everybody wants to slide their cars. Everybody wants to like jump off a bit. Like, well, not that you want to, but you imagine doing these things, and I get to do them. Like that's part of this whole thing. Is like you get to break into a house. So you're welcome.
so
glad
where
you
do
got
people? Please give us the information on the VR.
Yeah, so the VR series is based off the 2014 play of the same name, Lies Within, and it is season 1, so it is half of the story. Season 2 is I wrote it, it's done. We just need to shoot it. But you can see the first 4 episodes on SamsungVR.com. Samsung is our distributor. They've distributed to 52 different countries around the world. And then we have another distributor called Digital Domain, and Digital Domain is our Chinese distributor. So if you're living in China and listening to this, you can see it out there. But other than that, you can get it now from the Samsung VR app.
Okay.
For only $4.99, which is crazy. I would have charged more for that, but I wasn't in charge of that whole thing. But you see the first 4 episodes, and then we have another 6, and it was super fun and super liberating and relaxing to shoot that because I didn't have to worry about the next group of people coming into the show.
Right.
And I got to, we talked about sound design and music. I got to really like focus on this is 360 ambisonic sound. Like we put a lot of work into. I'll just say, like, when you see it, you really feel like you've ripped the movie screen apart and you actually like stepped into it and you're really in there. So I mean, the better thing would be, the live show. I guess that's the most sort of tangible equivalent.
Did you
VR thing's
actually
fun.
shoot in the house?
We shot it in the house that we did the play. Yeah. The exteriors we shot in Topanga Canyon. It takes place in South Carolina, but we got lucky. It was a big rain, so everything turned green out there. So we shot it in Topanga Canyon on the approach to the house. And then the interiors were at the house that we did the play in. And then one scene in the house we did at the 2012 house. And one of the scenes we did there. So, yeah, it was super fun.
And the whole VR idea, was that something you came up with, or is that something that someone came to you and was like, hey, this would be cool in doing this in VR. Let's talk.
Yeah, it was not my idea. I was actually not a VR fan. I didn't enjoy it at all. And one of my good friends and future producers, he produced the show. His name's Dave Brzezowski. He and I, actually his name is right here too. I credited him to help me write this one, The Blue Blade. He came up to me. He's like, "Hey, look, what a cool idea to kind of take the theater aspect, the 360 theater aspect, and put it in VR. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer." And I thought, no, I don't know, VR is not really a great medium. It's hard to acquire. It's hard to like download. It was just tough in my mind. But eventually, I got sold on it. He just kept talking to me about it, and I kept thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, it kind of does make sense. Because, I can place the camera in the ideal position the guest would be in the live show. So I can really focus on trying to tell the story. Everything is about telling this story. So how can I tell this story in the best way I could? I wanted to make this as a feature, and we still might at some point. But he kind of convinced me to do it, and then I signed a deal with Skybound. So Skybound Entertainment is Robert Kirkman's company, the Walking Dead guy. So I signed a contract with them where we kind of partnered on this project together, and they took on the whole production team role and co-producers, and they really pushed it along with Dave, and I just started to. It's kind of cool because I was like, I'm a VR skeptic that became like, I wouldn't say I'm a lover of VR, but I started to, as we moved through the process, I started to really believe in the idea of transforming interactive theater into VR because it made sense. So yeah, it was kind of Dave's idea, and then it took 2.5 years, and it just got released December 24th, 2018, and now it's out there. Finally.
And you said there was a season 2 on the way. Do you have plans for
Season
that
2.
yet?
I mean, as I said, it's written and ready to shoot, but we don't have any shoot dates yet.
Right.
Yeah. We'll see how this one does. Because VR is still tough, man. It's still such a... I mean, Mike, you know. Like, I mean, you do some VR. We were just talking about before the podcast, you were talking about
Resident Evil 7.
Resident Evil, yeah. That, like, still people think, like, VR and gaming is a lot of fun. But like, well, this is not a game. This is not choose your own event. This is you're inside the movie, and you're just relaxing on a swivel chair and being inside of the story. But this is the nascent stage of VR. Like, it still is very hard to distribute. It's hard to like monetize off it. Even our series. I mean, you have a Samsung VR account, and you have to have an Oculus account to get the series. It's still not, we're all sort of learning together on how to do this. But I think I did say in the beginning of the VR process, I said, look, if we're going to do this, this has to be the most cinematic VR project that exists. Like, if we're going to do something, let's do it right. Let's do it big. And I have to say, like, honestly, it is, I've seen a ton of VR now. It is the most, it is that. It's super cinematic. The camera we shot in looks great. Everything looks really cool. It is the most cinematic you'll see. So Samsung, obviously, Samsung believed in it too, so they signed on, and they want to push VR, and they're using this as like a platform to help push that. We'll see how it does. So you have ventured into VR. What other formats are you looking at for Delusion to expand into? So now I'm starting to write the podcast version of His Crimson Queen, the vampire show. I want to do that as a old school radio drama. Like,
nice.
I thought that would be a lot of fun. That outline's finished, and I need to start diving into that whole story. But
Well,
I love that story.
Will all the voices be done by you?
Oh my God, yeah. One of them will. I am going to choose one of them. I'm not sure which one yet. The leading lady. That would be delightful. That was horrible. Maybe I won't. I'm fired. I think that'd be super cool. I love the idea of, like, I mean, you guys are in the podcast world, like, you guys would be totally into it, wouldn't you? Like, like a vampire, old school vampire tale. Like, and this tale too, like the way I'm kind of writing it, it's super exciting. It's just such a cool, like, it's a cool story, and it's becoming even like grander than the 2016 show. And so, I mean, long story short is there's a whole strategy to expand the Delusion stories, and that's the focus. The focus is, it's not the theater thing is definitely a part of it, but the journey is going to be the VR aspect is the first one, then hopefully the podcast, the radio drama, and then comic book through Skybound and Image Comics and stuff like that. And then ultimately, I mean, I say this every time, and I say it because I need it to manifest. Is like, there's going to be a Delusion TV series at some point. It's just tailor made, and it would be based off the 2011 and 12 show, because those things are kind of connected. We're going to do a TV series at some point, and it's going to be fucking badass.
Looking forward to all of it.
Knock on wood.
Oh.
So what else?
That's not enough. Oh my God.
Well, but in
a children's story for my daughter. Yeah.
But kind of going along in that question, how do you keep upping the ante? For example, you've done stunts. You had people fly through the air. Then you have creature effects. Now you're doing VR. Like, how do you keep going to that next level?
Well, a lot of CBD oil. I guess I'm like any other sort of person in this field, like artists trying to. I don't really love my stuff, to be honest. Like I think there's some cool shit out there, but like I'm always trying to like better myself and try to push myself. So maybe that's a good thing, is like never being complacent and never being like fully accepting of like, oh, this is like, I fully know that there's plenty of, my shit stinks, and it needs to, and I just need to keep like trying to get better and better at it. I'm a pretty upbeat person, but but this stuff, I like about 60% of like what I'm doing. It's about 60 or 70%. And I think like that drives me to a constant critic. Like I'm my worst critic. Like I think, and this is nothing new. Like we all have experienced this. Like I assume you guys have created things you're like, oh, this is kind of, I'm not really happy with that. So it's the same thing it's the same kind of thing. Like, okay, well, I'm not happy with this and I need to create something else because I have to fill that 40% void that this other thing sucked, so I got to do something else. But then you do something else, and then you like 60% of that. So it just keeps like this whole like vicious cycle of things. But I have some stories that I really want to create and I really want to put out there, and the feeling and the emotion, the power behind those stories are so strong that I can't be stopped.
Good.
Let's put it
Very
that way.
happy to hear you say that.
Even if I'm completely broke and, knocking on your door, being like, can I come in and play, Resident Evil with you, Mike? Will you let me in?
That should be a podcast of its own. That should be a video podcast, a vlog, what the kids say.
There you go. Yeah.
But
I don't
We'll
want
edit
to
that
talk
part
about
out.
that traumatic experience. I'd rather not. I see that on your... I don't know why I have this voice going. I have no idea where that came from.
So ask John, who hurt you?
That's a funny thing. It's funny. It's so funny. I've been like, why do you love horror so much? I'm like, well, I don't love. I mean, I had a spectacular childhood.
Awesome.
I have great parents and a spectacular childhood. I have no complaints. Where the fuck this shit came from, I have no idea. So I mean, you got like 2014. You had to go into this room and scrub this woman's back while she's masturbating in a bathtub.
I did that.
Okay.
I did too.
There you go. Where'd that come from? I don't know. Who knows where this shit comes from? Fantasies, I guess. I don't know.
So speaking of your fantasies and the stories that you have to tell, with the Blue Blade extending till June, will we see something new in October?
It's a great question.
If you can answer it.
Can't answer it not just because like there's some secret behind it, but we're literally so focused on this that it's hard to think about October. I know it's going to come up fast again. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of really great opportunities that are being presented right now, and I kind of have to choose which direction to go in. I will say that we're going to have to play with the format of the show. It can't continue exactly like in this format. I think there can be certain times of the day where you can actually like do the linear Delusion format, but I think as we move forward, and if we want this to be a sustainable thing, I need to think about ways to tell these stories, but in a slightly different format. This has been a passion project for 6 years, and it's coming to a head where it's like, okay, you better buy your tickets for this one, because I don't know where it's going to go from here. I don't know if it's going to continue in this specific format, because I need to relieve the financial pressure of these shows, as well as like the stress behind it. There's an ungodly amount of stress that goes on with these shows, and I need to remove that kind of stuff for myself and for the team. It's becoming very difficult. I just went on a tangent there. Quick answer is, I don't know what's going to happen in October. Let's tackle that issue another time.
Okay.
Sorry, this is becoming like a venting podcast for me.
Vent away.
Fuck everything.
Do you want
God
more?
damn it.
Speaking of, do you want more wine?
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Soon.
All right, just let us know.
Actually, do you have some water? I can.
Yes, certainly.
That'd be great.
Do you need anything, Mike?
Nope, thanks.
Ooh, the nest. Okay, so I'm here at Russell's house, and I see tape for The Nest. So The Nest, I didn't get to see it unfortunately, but Jared and thank you. But The Nest is a really cool show. Like that, I got inspired by Jeff. Yes, Jared and Jeff. There we go. It came to me somehow, and these guys were some of the artists on my show in 2016, and talk about going back to what you were saying, Mike, about the inspirational thing. Like they got really inspired by the show, and they're like, let's do our own thing. So The Nest came out of that. Like they went off and did that, and because they built, if you guys remember, and anybody who went to the 2016 show, there's like this attic, and you kind of crawl. You're left alone, and you crawl through like this attic area, and so that kind of helped inspire their project. And I heard great things about it. I wish I got to see it.
That was fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite things that entire year.
Oh my God, that's so cool to hear.
Well,
I don't go to any.
Well, I was just going to ask, what have you gone to that you've really enjoyed?
This is gonna sound so weird, but I don't think I'm the right person for these experiences. I don't go to any of them. The only I feel very, God, this sounds so weird because I'm creating these things, but I feel very uncomfortable at these things. Like I just feel really weird about like actors looking at me and like wanting, like talking to me about things. It just feels strange for me, and but I know there's a market for it, obviously. So I've been to Wicked Lit. I'm always a fan of because I love the literary aspect of it. And I love anything old school horror. I love their venue. I love it encompasses the whole feeling of the fall, like in Wicked Lit. I've been to The Willows, Justin's project. I know a couple of my actors, Dasha and Galen are in it, and that was fun. But again, that was something that like I could see how a lot of people would like that, and I mean, it's not that I didn't like it. I'm not the right audience for that. I just wanted to leave the whole time. Actually, my only thought was like, wow, they have this cool house, and they didn't have to spend that much money on the production design. Like, I should really take a lesson from that. I did do Blackout. I did Blackout once with Neil. It was in 2012 after the show, after Delusion. Neil's like, you gotta come with me to this thing, Blackout. I'm like, what is it? He's like, he explained it to me. I'm like, not for me. And he's like, come on, you gotta go. I'm like, okay, fine. So we went, and he was like giddy. The guy was like super giddy going through it. He just loves that shit, and I just was like, I just want to leave. I just like, I'd stick my hand in like a toilet with like vomit or something, and I was like, oh God, this is not for me.
That was the first LA show, right?
That was the first LA. That was kind of like a greatest hit show for Blackout, and that's where Mike and I both discovered Blackout.
Oh, no shit. Yeah.
Yeah, that was that season.
Oh, that's funny. Did I go to any other ones? Yeah, Willows, Wicked Lit, Blackout, and I love like Knott's Berry Farm in the fall. I think that's super cool. For me, it's like fall again. Just to get into my mind, like fall to me. You ever see Over the Garden Wall, that cartoon? You ever heard of that?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
So it's on Cartoon Network. Over the Garden Wall. It's a kind of a kids show, but it got some adult themes to it. Animated show. Okay. Well, if you haven't seen it, then it's hard to explain, but it basically encompasses all the things I love in fall. Like I grew up in Chicago with like the smell of the fall and like the just running around with friends and like the magic of it, and just being somebody else for that time period. And that show really encompassed all the things I love about the Halloween season. So it's those kind of like, I wouldn't say so much wholesome things, but kind of, and then it kind of went in a darker direction, and I thought I wasn't so like terribly into that, but I'm a fucking dude. I say this, but at the same time, we did this whole demonic thing. Where 2012 was this show with like demons coming, busting through walls, and vampires feasting on each other, incest and masturbating women in bathtubs, and like all this crazy shit. So who am I to say like we don't go dark? I don't know. We go dark, but anyway, where are we going? What was the question?
About stuff you've seen.
Stuff I've seen. Yeah, it's just that stuff, and I just like good theater, good stories. Like I think my overall favorite would be probably Wicked Lit, just moving through the mausoleum and moving through the cemetery. I thought that was really cool. It's a good energy. Yeah. What about you guys? What's your sort of like your fall favorite kind of thing? I asked that being Delusion. You don't forget about Delusion. Just that doesn't exist. What do you guys really like?
Well, Delusion has to exist. Delusion is one of the favorite things for the adventure aspect. Yeah, which like Delusion is definitely part of the mix. I'm someone who tries to go to the theme park stuff every other year or every third year because they're a bit too conga line and predictable to me. So I like anything that's unpredictable. So I try to go to home haunts and I try to explore that territory whenever possible. And I do like the immersive theater stuff, which 2 years ago I went to Miasma in Chicago, which is considered an extreme haunt. It has some very extreme physical elements in it. But I also love that it has a kind of a psychological, surreal aspect to it as well. This past season, I thought Theater Macabre was a fascinating experiment. And it's funny because of all the things that happened in Los Angeles this past season, that was the controversial one that some people just respected it but didn't enjoy it, or respected it and did enjoy it but didn't really get it. And I'm fascinated that a piece can create such diverse reactions. And I think that's exciting for me to go through something that can create that in an audience. Like so many people walk away with completely different opinions of it. Yeah. I just find that fascinating.
I went to that. Sorry, that's another one I did go to. Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's and I found it fascinating. But you were saying about being uncomfortable or not being the person for that. That's a show which I think a lot of people had a problem with.
Oh yeah.
You had to go aggressively find the show. Once you were inside, you had to aggressively start the conversations and you had to go for it. And if you weren't prepared to do that, and if that made you a little uncomfortable, I could see where that show would be very challenging to enjoy or get the fullest amount out of it that you could.
Yeah.
So, Mike?
Oh, I grew up in New England, so I know what you mean about fall. So a lot of the things that I've found myself really enjoying is the same thing that brings me back to my youth, like the smell of cold. Like I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people in LA, but when there's trees and leaves turning and the wind, like you smell fall.
Yeah.
And things like just traditional type haunted houses, like this past year it wasn't open, but Mabel's 6 Feet Under, it's just a good traditional haunted house. And the Trilogy of Terror by Freakling Brothers in Vegas, as far as haunted houses go. And then
I heard that was awesome.
Yeah,
they
and
are
then,
awesome.
Theater Macabre this year was it blew my mind. And Creeps Awake, like the things that I'm sorry if I'm going to make you feel awkward, but I want to thank you because I really do think that without you, a lot of these things wouldn't be happening. So Delusion really gave me that first sense of, wait, I can talk? What do you do? What? I'm in the show? It made me realize I liked it. And then I searched it out from that point. And I think a lot of companies that are doing that now, like they owe you some respect.
Should take royalties from everyone. Should work out a deal. Mike, you could be the manager.
Sure.
You could give me a cut of everybody's show.
I do work in licensing.
Hey,
he does.
Well, here we go. Keep an eye out for Mike. He's going to be negotiating with each and every one of you coming soon. That's so funny. Yeah, that is the smell. Yeah, man. I mean, I've been out in LA since '98, and it's never gotten any easier. I love. Fall is the best season, just to smell like you're saying, everything you're saying is it's spot on. My family has a cabin in Vermont, and I go to Vermont every fall. Imagine the smell of the leaves. The leaves are bright red, and the smell of fall. That's real true. That'd be, if I have a dream of doing a show, it would be in a place like Vermont, and create a Delusion out there that's during the fall season with using the actual elements of natural fall season.
I have
my
it.
God,
If
so
you're
cool.
if you're ever able to get to Massachusetts in October, I think they do this every year. This past year, I was in October. I went to Old Sturbridge Village, and what that is, it's a 1800s or 1700s reenactment village. So that's where kids go on field trips. And like when I was
Is
a
that
kid,
Plymouth
I would go there.
Plantation? What is it?
No, Old Sturbridge Village. It's
sorry.
in between like Springfield and Worcester. They do sheep shearing and they do blacksmithing. It's like
Yeah.
very teachable. But during Halloween, they do a production of Sleepy Hollow out
see,
there,
that's
and
all- that's so
everything that
awesome.
you just mentioned
That's so cool.
was that show. And I came back and I told Russell, like, you need to travel and do this. It's amazing. And
Yeah, you don't have to do much there. You just use the elements. That's so cool.
Well, he
Yeah.
showed a picture that, like, I was sold anyway with just his description, but the picture you showed me of the walkway
With the
lit
flame.
by
Yeah.
flaming torches,
Oh.
like, you can't create that. That's, you're out in nature with flaming torches lighting your way. I was like, I would, and everything you're saying about the smell and the cold and all of that, and like, I'm sold. I want
Oh
to do it.
man, yeah, there's something so special about that. I love that. Yeah, we had. I mentioned to you, Mike, about the Plymouth Plantation, which you know about, I assume. Mm-hmm. So they reached out. It was like 3 years ago, and they wanted to do some kind of Delusion event there. It just never happened. But like, I thought that'd be cool to do something out there in Massachusetts. So I'm gonna take a look at the picture right now. The movie that Mike's showing me, Sleepy Hollow.
but all of those are like tiki torches because there's no electricity in the 1800s.
Yeah, see, they're out in the pitch black dark with torches and cool little Sleepy Hollow sign. That's cool.
And there was an actual horse.
Did you get on a carriage ride or something?
No,
Yeah, you can't make that stuff. Like, and that's funny because like we talk about the fall smell. Like that's something it's so intoxicating. It's hard to explain to anybody who doesn't really. When I go to Vermont or I go to Chicago and I smell fall, my spirit like rises in a grand way. It's hard to explain, but that's where we play around with smells sometimes in my show, but very rarely. But in 2013, it's funny because Victor, my assistant director, he's very big on smells. He's like, really get people like, you use that sense because I don't use it enough. And so we had like a morgue sequence. I don't know if you guys remember. You go, you get on this gurney, and one person gets in the gurney, and they get rolled into the morgue, and that's how you kind of infiltrate. And he wanted to get the smell of like rotten flesh or like just disgusting shit. So he went in there and sprayed all this. He bought this stuff from Amazon or something and sprayed just disgusting shit in there. And the actor almost quit. He's just like, he came out in between the play, and he's like, "What the fuck is this smell? I can't work like this shit." And we had to shut down the show for a little bit because we had to open up the doors. He sprayed too much. It was so bad. We had to stall the group and get a fan in there and get rid of it. I mean, it was nauseating. It was just, that was horrible. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember one year when I was working with the Evil Twin guys. I'm trying to remember we had a tunnel you had to crawl through, and I believe it was the rotting flesh smell
Oh
we
God.
put in the tunnel. I think that was it, except everyone thought it was vomit. So patrons kept coming out saying, "I think you should check the tunnel. I think someone threw up in there." And of
Oh,
course,
Jesus.
every time somebody says that, you have to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
So all night long, somebody says there was vomit in the tunnel again. And it became this running thing of like we were constantly going through the tunnel, and it was just
God.
the smell that was chosen to be used in that tunnel.
Ugh, that's disgusting.
We're kind of talking about, Mike asked you the question of what you've seen. You said that your horror isn't your go-to necessarily. So as a kid, what interested you and inspired you?
My biggest inspirations were games, role-playing games. Like I was
really?
a Dungeons and Dragons kid. That was me. I would play D&D all the time. And quick, very funny, interesting story is like I would play D&D with a group of friends, and one of them was the dungeon master for the group, and he grew up to create Game of Thrones. And he was like a perfect kind of a transition for this guy, Dan Weiss, DB Weiss. He's like,
Wow, yeah.
He's he's
Wrote many of the episodes, right?
for sure. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Like total name drop there, but it was an interesting story because it kind of like we all were into that same kind of thing. So I was a D&D kid, and then I grew up during the whole like role playing. I'm 44. This is during Apple IIe, Apple IIgs, and all this kind of computer games when like King's Quest came out, and Baldur's Gate, and all these like role playing games that a lot of us used to play. Those were huge inspirations for me, as well as camp. I was a camp kid, so I would go up to Wisconsin and go to camp every summer, and as a camper, and then as a counselor, and I just every year would be like constant. Like I would either create scavenger hunts for the kids. This is a really funny story. I would scare I was known as this makes perfect sense, but I would scare the shit out of the entire camp constantly. It was a constant. Like fear fest for everybody, and I would get blamed for everything because I'd bring up masks and I would scare people like up in the woods, like like Jason. That was me basically. And I go off on these big tangents of stories, sorry, but this is an interesting story, so I'll just make it quick. Like I scared the hell out of this one girl's cabin, and I put in this really creepy mask. Actually, it was the Michael Myers mask. That's what it was. And I was standing in the window, and these girls were screaming their fucking heads off. And I ran away, and I was a counselor at that time. And then I took the mask off. I went back into my room. Nobody saw me. And then the camp director came out and gathered most of the crew, most of the counselors, and said, "We have somebody who's scaring all the kids here. We need to search for this person. And Jon, I want you to lead the team." And I was like, "All right, I'll find him. I swear, I'll find him. We'll do it." So for the next like 2 hours, I was the coordinator and leader of all the camp counselors looking for myself, and I would like just fuck with everybody. I'd be like, "Okay, you guys go over there. I think I heard something in the woods. You guys go off and explore over there." And then I'd go off and I'd lead another group into the woods and or near a cabin. I'd pretend to hear something over here, and it was 2 hours of like crazy fun of manipulating people. But so it was the camp life, sort of the freedom and exploration and fun of adventurous fun in the woods, and as well as like the fantasy adventure games that I would play. Like those things were big escapes for me. Fantasy novels that's my favorite genre. I would read, all the Margaret Wise, Tracy Hickman novels, David Eddings novels. I read a lot of Stephen King novels. Not that that's fantasy, but I would consider that still in a similar vein.
He gets very psychological and mental.
Yeah.
A lot of his characters have interior monologues. It's, I think, one of the reasons people have so much problem translating his stuff to film.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's rare that you get like a good quality adaptation. Misery was one of my favorites, actually. That's a spectacular one. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's really, we can look back on our childhood and pinpoint certain things that brought you to where you are today, and it's definitely role-playing games. That was it, man. That was it. And I continue to play them now, not as much as I want. I'm still working on Skyrim. When did that come out? That was like 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
That's in VR too now.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. I get it. I really need to. I'm playing it actually with this story, the Blue Blade. I hit a wall. I hit a writer's block for a while, and I went to GameStop, the gaming store, and I was like, dude, I'm having trouble with this story. I need to get out of my head. Like, do you have any, like, I'm a writer. Do you have anything that, like, I don't know, might help me get through this writer's block? And he mentioned this game called Alan Wake. You ever heard about it?
No.
Alan Wake is about a writer that suffers from writer's block, and he goes off to this island with his wife, and he gets sort of terrorized by his stories. Like, his stories are coming to life on this island, and he has to sort of conquer his own demons in a way, and it's super terrifying. So I bought that game and started playing that game, and that helped me get out of writer's block, to continue the Blue Blade. But yeah, gaming is of utmost importance, and I need to do more of it. So even seeing you, Mike, like playing a game, like I was like, dude, I got to play more of this shit.
What system do you play on?
I just have an Xbox. I still have an Xbox 360. I'm still playing like as I said, Skyrim, and I have Alan Wake, and I don't play nearly as much as I should. So I need to make more time for that.
Well, you're more than welcome anytime.
Oh,
We can have gaming nights. Show
There
you
you
all
go.
the new stuff.
Oh man,
Mike has gotten me into. I've never been a gamer. My entire life I have never been a gamer. And what was it, a year and some change?
2 years.
Has it been 2 years?
Well, PSVR came out 2 years ago in 2016, like right before the holidays, and I think that's when I forced you to play some games, and you're like, "Yep, I'm gonna get one."
Oh, he was very sneaky. He showed me a couple of VR things. He showed me like, do this, and they were a simple puzzle. There's an escape room type game. And then he puts the VR thing on my head and unleashes me in the world of Batman. And I was like, I must own this. And so he was very sneaky about getting me into gaming. He was like, oh, just try this. And then he blows my mind with, what was it, Arkham?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's in VR. Jesus.
And also, but the reason I wanted to share that is the thing that blew me away, and the thing that, being that I've never played games in my life, the thing that blew me away was there were jump scares. There was a plot twist that I literally screamed in Mike's living room. I actually screamed out loud when it happened, and story driven, like absolutely story driven. And I was like, wait, this is what gaming can be? Because I didn't get it. The fact that you're talking about role-playing games, like absolutely, they're just fuel and for inspiration. And I'm just now discovering it. And, I because I'm not a gamer, I don't find it intuitive. I still feel very awkward holding a controller in my hands because I didn't grow up with one. But I mean, Mike has introduced me to some wonderful stuff, and it's like, hey, it's one of the reasons I like having him as a friend.
Hey,
So you're using me, is what you just
no.
admitted.
you guys use each other. Come on.
Mike is like, come over to this dark corner and let me show you what lies here.
There you go.
That's Mike.
I'm like the video game drug dealer.
Yeah.
A little bit.
You kind of look like it. You got the hoodie. Well, I got a hoodie too, but all in black. You guys should see him here.
But to your point, Russell, I mean, granted, when you're online gaming, you're not hanging out, but when you're playing a multiplayer game and you're on chat, we hang out almost every night now.
Yeah.
Whereas I would purposely miss your calls on purpose if you were calling me, but now we're talking in the game and every night, and with other fans of Haunts and things, and our conversations, when they're not the killer's over here, it's, hey, what are you doing this weekend? What show are you? Oh, you saw that show? Oh, cool, I'll go check it out.
Yeah, there's that world is it's huge, and it's severely underestimated. Like you were saying, Russell, it's super inspiring.
I underestimated it.
Yeah,
I did.
I think most people do. They just think, when you think gaming, if you step outside of the gaming world, you think gaming, you're like, oh, people just killing each other, and it's just a stupid kind of thing. But then it's a whole world that I wish everybody got into, because all in moderation. Obviously, you don't want to be sitting. The multiplayer games can consume. I know two people in general I can think of right now. Their lives were destroyed. Their family is destroyed by it because they just got completely consumed by it. That aside, it's super inspirational, and I don't even think it's just inspirational. I actually think gaming is vital to our evolution. I think we learn everything. We learn better through gaming. We inspire imagination through gaming. Not just when you inspire yourself, creatively through gaming, you leave the gaming world and you're on a high. You're on a high afterwards, and maybe you go and you write a little story. It could be something minor. You write down something that you worked on, or it inspires you to continue a project further than you have taken it before. So, gaming is. I said this once in some other interview. We were talking about it. If I don't play, the less I play games, the more I suffer from this boring adulthood. Just kind of it's dull. So I think there's a power in gaming that's grander than most people can even fathom.
I think I'm just beginning to appreciate it.
Yeah, and there's a game for you. I mean, I don't know what kind of games you like. I mean, do you like what have you played the Arkham game? But what other have you played other games?
The VR game Farpoint I actually really enjoyed, which is one person roaming through a landscape, discovering the story as you do, and then things try to kill you that happens.
But with Farpoint, you have a gun controller that they made for it, and when you're in VR, you look down because you're holding a gun, like a gun controller in real life. You look down, you're holding a gun, and you just move it.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And there's a PvP mode, and there were times it was Russell, like me versus Russell, and I would sneak behind him to flank him, and I'd be like, "Hey, Russell, turn around!" And he'd turn around, and I had the gun right in his face and shoot him in the face.
Oh my God! He's just like your play toy.
Yeah, this sums up our relationship, our friendship.
Apparently. Hey Russell, how you doing? Right in the face.
He did it several times. So
You after this interview, you should play Farpoint. Like at least
yeah,
for like,
I'd love to check it out. Actually, I want to play. I want to buy a new system, and I want to play Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh yeah,
that I hear is a spectacular game.
I have watched someone play it, and it is, you're talking about immersive theater. Red Dead Redemption has sort of a free roaming open world aspect to it, where and then there are missions within it, but it is a lot of where you can just roam and you'll encounter characters and meet people and learn about them, and then there are missions that you can go on as well. But that was the fascinating thing to me watching someone play that is it's an open world video game.
That stuff is that's what I liked about Skyrim. I'll find myself the reason why I never finish it is because I'll literally just walk and I'll find a river and I'll just like stare at the river for like 20 minutes. Like, oh, this is so pretty because you can see the the wind's blowing through the leaves, and I'm like, oh, this is so nice. I love rivers, so I'll just sit there and like, oh, there's a quest I got to do. Those games are a bit overwhelming because I always feel like I have to do. There's just so much to it. Like I feel overwhelmed. Like I have to take this quest. This shopkeeper has a problem with in his dungeon. And he enlists me to go help with the dungeon. But I have this other quest I have to do, and I'm like, oh, shit, I'm never going to get to the final and the ending of this game. But I get consumed in those things, and I just don't. I never finish them. So.
Which, as a new gamer, and I've commented to Mike about this, I actually like the fact that like Dead by Daylight has, an agenda, and the agenda is for this round, and so each round is 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how good the players are. Sometimes 5 to 10. But and then like the Friday the 13th was the first game I spent a lot of time, and that's like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
like each round is 20 minutes, so it's very easy to check in, have a little fun, and then check out. I'm just now starting to realize the idea of the role-playing stuff. I'm just now beginning to see the potential of that. And the Arkham thing in particular was, like I said, was just mind-blowing to me of how emotionally invested I got in the last act of the story.
Yes, right. And those story games, have you ever heard of Grim Fandango? Mm-hmm. Have you played that?
I haven't played it.
So I'd recommend. It's my number one favorite game of all time.
Really?
Yeah, and I say that just because of the story. If you played the game, so I don't know if it's exactly your thing, but like it was a Lucasfilm or LucasArts. Sorry, LucasArts was they going back to that question you were asking about like the inspiration. LucasArts did a lot of story games. They had. What the fuck's the name of it? The Dig, and then they had the Indiana Jones series, The Fate of Atlantis, and a few other Indiana Jones stuff, and then they had Grim Fandango. So Grim Fandango is a classic adventure game where you play the character of like Manny Calavera, where you're like a travel agent to the dead.
Wait, somebody has recommended this to me before.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so,
I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No.
Go ahead.
I want you to. I mean, I bring it up because I want you to experience it. Like, it is the consummate story game. Like, it is an incredible story, and it's beautifully rendered, and it's all like Day of the Dead artwork. That's the sort of artwork of it, and that was a huge inspiration for story games. But that's that's a super fun one because you pretty much stay in the linear path. You're not breaking up into open world kind of stuff. And not there's anything wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing. But this one could sort of epitomize the adventure game after the whole Sierra games, like after the King's Quest series and Police Quest, and I mean all that shit. But I think adventure games are vital, and they definitely that was the main inspiration for all this stuff. Everything Delusion came from adventure games. So I can thank LucasArts.
This episode of My Whole Life is brought to you by not just Dr. Pepper or the Long Valley Red, but now it's brought to you by LucasArts. LucasArts.
And Arrowhead Water.
And Serial Killers, starring Mike.
I do have another Delusion question.
Yes, let's get back to Delusion. That's where it's to promote. Fast forwarding to this.
No, actually, this was just how Mike and I have wanted to talk to you for a long time. So the promotion thing was just a ruse to get you here just so we can talk.
Well, I'm leaving. This is ridiculous. I'm out of here.
Hey, come back.
I'm back. Okay, fine. Sitting. Okay, that was horrible. The first half was good.
Do you remember the first time I met you?
Is this about to get weird?
No.
Okay.
This is leading somewhere. Just trust me on this.
Well, yeah, you've been around since the beginning, and I've seen you every year. Where was it? I don't remember. Shit. Damn it. Wait, give me a hint. Don't tell me exactly. Give me a hint.
Tours. Delusion.
Was it? Oh, behind the scenes tours? That's
Yep.
right. Oh, and it's just 2012?
And I that's the first time I actually had a conversation with you because you were offering backstage tours. And I wanted to do that so badly because I fell in love with Delusion right from the first time I ever went through it. And when you were offering the backstage tour, and I showed up, and nobody else showed up for that tour.
Oh, okay, now
So
I
it
remember.
was-
You weren't wearing any pants either, were you?
So
No, that was after the tour.
It was the tickle party.
That was the real TIP ticket.
That's right. Welcome to the tickle
but
party.
that's the first conversation. Yeah. So, really, exactly.
All right. No,
So, but no, that was
You know
the
what? I remember this now.
So because
That's right.
Because I was working at the time with Evil Twin.
Yep. Yes.
And
that's
you
right.
you started talking to me of like, this is a show and we have actors, and we like you were kind of talking to me like that, and I just said, hold on a second. Like I've actually done some hunting, and you just looked at me and went like, seriously? And I said, yeah, seriously. And he was like, oh, in that case, dude, all right, come in, I'm going to point, and you just walk where I point. And we had such a good time because
Oh, man.
that was one of the inspirational things about Delusion was going behind the scenes with you that night. You were so excited that I was excited, I think, to see what you were doing. So you're like just you would lead me somewhere and you'd put me like behind a wall or in a corner and you said just stay right here, and literally the audience was 2 feet away from me and never saw me, and you kept doing
That's
that.
so much fun.
I had such a blast that night, and that was the whole upstairs because there was a lot of wire work,
Oh, yeah. And
and that was the woman climbing down the wall,
Yeah.
or the narrow stairwell. That was that
yeah,
show.
Yeah.
And so I just had a blast. And are you doing tours in the future?
Yeah, well, so during the Blue Blade, like I'd be there many nights, and I would just like befriend some people, and I'd be like, if they were cool, and I'd be like, hey, come on, let's go. So I'd take people backstage,
Yeah.
and just we'd run around. But that was few and far between. But that's part of the VIP package. So you buy the VIP ticket, and then you're going backstage. It's either going to be with myself or one of the producers, Jackie Creditfield, which I think you've met her before.
Oh, absolutely.
Both of you know Jackie, yeah. So she'll be running some of those, either her, myself, or maybe one of the other leads of the production. But yeah, I mean, this one it's been fun. We've had some, because this show, there's been a couple paths towards the end. I won't spoil it, but like some people didn't get to do this one really cool adventurous thing.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so they're like, oh, you got to do that, cool. So I'll be like, oh, you didn't get to do it? Ah, fuck it, come on back with me. So we go back, and like in between the plays, I'd take them in and they'd go and enjoy that adventurous moment. Now that you mentioned that, I this is all coming back, and that's what I need. There's just so much shit happened in the past. It's like I need that door to be opened, and then now I remember all this.
So yeah, and it was like the other really cool memory I have is there was a wire stunt where somebody got dragged in that show.
Yeah,
and like between audience going through that room, you introduced me to the actor, and you kind of explained to me what was about to happen, and I'd been through the show, so I knew from the audience's perspective, and I just remember you saying something to the actor, and the actor turning around going, oh, like he's going to watch, and the actor goes, crank it up.
Oh my God.
And I just remember
that was Jack.
I just remember this actor literally like flying 2 feet in front of me, just like through the darkness.
Oh, like a dragging on the floor. And you were
yeah.
sitting on one of the rigs, like he just went right by your feet. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I was so happy to see that was a possibility for the future, that people would be able to have a chance, because I think it's fascinating, and I also think it's educational and inspirational as well. And it was that for me, and I'm so happy to hear that people will be able to purchase a ticket for that. Correct?
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Yes.
Now you can do it.
I highly recommend that experience. I thought it was an awesome glimpse behind the curtain.
I think we've had like a lot of VIP tickets bought for this spring so far, like more than I thought. It's I guess people really want to do that stuff. It's super fun. It's hard to, I get excited about bringing people through still, but it's hard for me to sort of. I wish I could be in their shoes. I wish I could be like, I know nothing about this at all, like, and just come into this world and see all this cool shit that they created, and just, I wish I could have that kind of initial wonderment of this kind of thing. I haven't had that. I haven't had that in a while. I think for me, the inspirational thing is to see people come out of the show and then see their faces. Like that to me is like, okay, well, this is worth it. Like that's when it's like all the trials and tribulations, like that's when it becomes worth it. Mikey, you got anything?
Sorry, I gotta wipe a tear away.
Remember the intro you did? There's a man that started it all.
And he won't leave.
That's true. This has been going on a very long time.
Actually, I don't know when we started.
2.5 hours.
Oh,
so
what?
far.
Holy shit balls.
You can talk, dude.
That's insane.
I can. Wow, I'm sorry. I went on and on and on.
No, this is awesome.
Like thank you so much for being so open and honest, and
Yeah.
This is like the stories have been great.
Yeah, we have just a couple more, and we'll let you go or play video games.
There you go.
Yeah, a couple more questions, and then we'll untie you.
Yeah. Please help me.
So Russell, you had mentioned how great the backstage tour was, and John, earlier you mentioned like people like Justin Fix would hit you up asking about Delusion. What sort of general advice would you give people that have the same questions, or you can buy a ticket to see the backstage like Russell did, but as far as people that want to create something, what path would you send them on? Like what advice would you give them after knowing what you've known after 8 years and six different shows?
Number one thing is only do what you really have your heart into. Like, just you got to do it. For me personally, like I can't at this point. I can't do anything if my heart's not in it. Know it and feel it, and if you have that passion for it, then as trite as it sounds, like that's the only. What the fuck are we doing on this planet anyway? Like, how you gonna do shit that's mediocre, and it's a waste of your time on this planet. Like, do what you really want to do, and yes, that you have to pay bills and figure out a way to do that. But at the end of the day, I've had that question before, and sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't. But I found that if you just do, let's see, how do I put this? If you just do cool shit, other things come. Like, that's it. Just do cool shit, and opportunities will present themselves. So don't think too far ahead. Just do like fun stuff that you think. I mean, I remember when I started this thing, as I said before earlier in the podcast, I was like, I'm a fan of this stuff. Like I knew in my heart, like people will enjoy this. This is something that I think will do well. And it's proven to do well creatively and, energetically as people are into it. So yeah, I would say just get involved with those things your heart's in. That's it. Oh, everything else is a waste of time. Unless look, let's go practical for a minute. Like if you have to do like a 2 or 3 month job where you're totally, really not into it, but just going to pay well, then just fucking do it. Like just because you got to pay the bills, do it. But like if I'm talking like long-term, like vision kind of stuff, like in your life, just try to stick to the things that you're really passionate about. Otherwise otherwise you'll be miserable. You'll just find yourself just being like, oh God, it's miserable. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I know like sometimes life gets in the way, right? You're really talented at something and you hit a wall and you just can't progress. And then you have to do something else. Like you get forced into it because you have to actually like buy food. That's it. That's like the main advice. I think what would be other advice? Like, besides that, that's really the best advice I can give. So,
Okay.
yeah. And steer clear of like sketchy podcast homes. I'm getting a little scared. All the shit that's around me. You guys should come to Russell's house and see all these spiders hanging from the ceiling. He's got claws in the wall. There's like
I forgot about the
masks
claw.
all over the place.
And don't forget the glitter spiderweb tablecloth.
Yeah, exactly. It's Halloween all year here. There's definitely a body in here. There is a body in this house. What's the address again?
But you'll never find it.
Okay, that's fine.
Or be able to tell anyone about it.
My life has been threatened so many times tonight.
It's a good thing we didn't record this at my place. Jesus.
Oh, shit. And that's the end.
Actually, one
Thanks for
more
coming,
question. Speaking of trick-or-treating, Russell, do you want to take this?
This is a question that we ask every guest on the podcast, and it is how we sort of gauge the essence of your soul as a human being.
Oh, shit.
So are you team Snickers or are you team Kit Kat?
Kit Kat.
Mike is disappointed in you.
I love Snickers to death, but oh my God, I love Kit Kat.
And there are a few of the only
This is so
seasonal
sweet.
red velvet, which I personally am not a huge fan of. But
Yeah, but Red Velvet, the K-pop group, is awesome, and they're playing in Pasadena in February.
Oh.
That's the name of
Do you
the
have your
band?
tickets yet?
No, it's sold out instantly. I'm going to look on StubHub the day of.
Okay.
This is so sweet. Now it's brought to you by Kit Kat. Listen to the crunch. You hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So do you
Can
need
I
more? Yes, feel free.
Of course.
This is great. That's very sweet.
So yeah, I'm more team Kit Kat, and Mike is more team Snickers. So do you need
I'm
anything
sorry,
else to
Mike.
drink, sir? By the way, since we have
No,
a brief
water's
moment. Okay,
perfect.
great.
But he is eating a Snickers right
Yeah.
now.
So
Just saying.
I do love Snickers.
Oh, all right, I'm gonna break up a Kit Kat. So
What does that? Wait, backing up a bit. What does that mean? If I'm a Kit Kat, is it just because I align more with you, Russell, than I do Mike, or does it mean something like deeper than that?
it became this conversation that happened where I said something about something on the podcast, and Mike was stunned that I would prefer Kit Kat over Snickers. I believe is the way it started, and I think Kit Kat is a more delicate, graceful, less heavy-handed snack than Snickers, which is so sugary and in your face. And I just thought it was a more, I don't know,
Well,
classy snack.
well,
And-
everything you're saying that's true. I mean, it is a more delicate It's wafer. You're talking about wafers. Right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's a
Yes.
cookie. It's not a candy bar.
So, well, and that was his argument. And then
guess,
suddenly people started
became
communicating,
a
like
hashtag.
messaging us and like weighing in on this. And so it became a question we always ask because we're always surprised sometimes. We have never had anyone refuse which that hasn't happened yet. We haven't had anyone say either. We have had one person say that they're actually Team Twix, so which is legitimate.
Shit.
So
You have a
But
Twix in here
but
too?
that's not.
No, I do not have
That's
any
not
Twix.
an answer.
God damn it!
yeah,
Twix. Oh, I do love Twix.
And don't forget the sandwich that was made by Noah Sinclair.
oh, that's true.
Oh, a Snickers Kit Kat sandwich?
Yeah,
Yes,
he's like, I'm gonna do both.
yeah. Can't we have all?
No, you got to make a choice, man. You can't I like everything.
All right, now that we've digressed a little bit, I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier in the podcast and just ask you this question. As a stunt person, you've been a stunt coordinator, stunt performer. Do you have a favorite Jackie Chan sequence?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's Armor of God 2 and Drunken Master 2. But I think the greatest... Well, no. There's two. I'd say Drunken Master 2, the final fight sequence in Drunken Master 2. People need to... Everybody needs to see that. It's a work of art. It took 5 months to shoot. Oh my God, I was way off. Sorry, 5 weeks. Jesus, 5 months would be too long, but 5 weeks to shoot this, which is a long time. So Drunken Master 2, badass. And then First Strike was a movie, Jackie Chan movie, where he did a whole fight sequence with a ladder. If you remember.
I have seen that fight sequence, ladder, but I don't think I've seen the whole film. I know the sequence you're talking
about.
It's
Australian. It took place in Australia, yeah. That was badass. And then I worked with the stunt coordinator who worked on that movie, so I was a big fan of that. He did a bunch of fights with Jackie and everything. I never got to work with Jackie, but yeah. Watch Drunken Master 2. Mm-hmm. Final fight sequence. It's incredible.
And I'm going to throw out, it's like, I think for his comedy, Project A Part 2.
Oh, Project is badass.
The apartment sequence, which is basically a bedroom farce. It's an action comedy, and then suddenly there is this one sequence where the running gag is how many people can you hide in an apartment from each other? And I just think it's a brilliant comedy sequence. And Operation Condor.
Oh, Operation Condor. Well, Operation Condor is Armor of God.
Yes.
2. That's the same movie.
Yeah,
so that was the American title.
That's the American name. The
Thanks,
wind tunnel sequence.
Yes. Oh, I just watched that last night. Okay, so I'd 2 nights ago, my assistant director Victor came over and we were working on the trailer that came out today, and we took a break and we watched the wind tunnel sequence in Armor of God 2.
Yeah.
Have you seen this, Mike?
No.
Dude, this is crazy.
Which that
shit.
was at the
That's crazy
time,
shit.
It's not the wind tunnel, but the whole weird teeter-totter sequence that's in that film. Mm-hmm. At that time, apparently was the largest set ever built for that country.
Oh, yeah.
And the wind tunnel sequence, I think, took a month and a half to shoot, if I remember correctly. And it's stunningly choreographed. It's an amazing comedy action sequence.
Oh, super, yeah. That really put him on the map. Yeah, I think that was the most expensive Chinese action film of
it's
all time.
Massive.
It was his. That was his Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
That was. You gotta see this movie. It's crazy. That's a crazy fun movie.
And the other thing, please tell Mike that he has to see The Killer and Hard Boiled by John Woo.
You like John Woo stuff?
I don't know. I think I've seen one or two of his movies, but I'm not the film guy that Russell is when it comes to names and stuff. I just see stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's good because you inspire Russell to play these games.
Yeah.
And then he can bring you to. So you guys have a really sweet relationship. Where'd you guys meet?
Well, the first Scare LA at the Blackout meetup.
The Blackout meetup, and that's where this whole podcast kind of started. Is this?
No, the podcast started because I became friends with him, and we ended up going to a bunch of haunts and stuff together. And then after the haunts, Russell would talk for an hour or two about what he just went through while I'm there going like, okay, dude, okay. But then I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute, these conversations are actually really cool. There's podcasts now. I bet other people would be into hearing this that didn't get to go through it. And then that's kind of, I brought the idea up to him, and he's like, what's that?
That's awesome. Oh, that's super cool. And that was, when was that? The first Scare LA?
2013?
Yeah. Oh, that's wild.
And it has opened up a lot of friendships. I mean, we've met people because of the podcast, and, people reach out to us from other cities, and, I'm now becoming friends with people in different areas of the country just by communicating, and it all started with them hearing this or reaching out and asking questions. And so, I mean, it was Mike's suggestion when he first suggested it. I was like, okay, sure, it sounds like it could be interesting. I don't know if people would be interested, but what we found out is people around us were hearing our conversation and asking more questions about it, and I think that was part of the inspiration too. So yeah.
Yeah, you guys got a good thing going. That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it
pretty
also
awesome.
has, to be totally honest, led to the opportunity to meet and talk to people like you more than we would
That's fun.
at Delusion some night for 5 minutes after we run through the show.
Yeah, I can't talk to anybody when I'm at the show. I apologize if when I'm at the show and I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, but it's good. It's good to hang and chat about this stuff because, yeah, this whole podcast world is fun. This has been fun. This has been a lot of fun. So thanks for inviting me.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
And thanks for the candy. And
Thank you for the wine.
yeah, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And
Yeah,
you're
I
not a
did.
red guy, but you this is your second glass, so
Yes.
it's good. It's not finished yet, so cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Of course, we get the clunk.
Yeah.
So just one last comment / question, but do you have any last words?
Last
that came
words?
out
Shit.
out wrong.
Wait a
But
minute.
Do you have any?
This is for Mike.
Do you have any final thoughts or shout outs or anything, any information you want out?
Like a
we didn't
wannabe
cover.
serial killer.
Not wannabe.
Oh shit. Oh my god, that was funny. Hey, okay. Well, number one is if you listen to this entire episode of My Haunt Life, and you're a fucking champ, you're a champion. Thank you for enduring our banter and for my diatribes that would just go on and on. And then I would just end with if you've been to Delusion or you've never been, I assume a lot of people who have listened to this probably have been to the show already. I would say we're leaving this in your hands right now to help decide the future of this kind of entertainment. So let's band together and go on adventures together and really like bring in friends. So tell us, like Russell was doing, with your friends. Russell, you've been great about dragging in people that would normally not do this. Everybody listening, let's just push your friends and tell them this is not just a pastime. It's fun. It's super fun. It's great, but it's going to endure and it's going to affect. I think it affects people's lives. I think in grander ways than I ever even imagined. We've had marriages come from this. We've had other stories come from this, and inspiration. Like you were saying, Mike, about like other shows and that have spawned from this kind of thing. So there is something grander in what we're doing, and the delusionals, as we call them, are a big part of that. So keep it up. And communication. God, I have such a sweet tooth. I'm gonna have one more Kit Kat before I go. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for telling the stories, sharing everything you have. Best of luck. No, go ahead. Unwrap the candy.
Oh, you're talking. It'd be rude. People are going to hear like a rap. But go ahead. You had it.
No,
creates
thank you
immersion.
so much for coming out and talking. We really appreciate it. This has been a
you, bud.
pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Me
thank
too.
you.
Me too. I appreciate it.
Now, eat the candy.
Do you have any other voices you want to try before you leave?
I do a few voices. I got my old man Simpson voice. From the what was it? He does that one line. And in those days, nickels had pictures of bumblebees on them. Give me 5 bees for a quarter, you'd say. That's my old man's voice. What's the Barney Simpson? What's that one where he's at the film festival for Mr. Burns, and some woman's next to him. She's like, "Does something crawl in your throat and die?" "It didn't die." I can go on and on. We should probably end this. But yeah, I love voiceover work. It's super fun. That's it. That's all you
right.
get. Later.
See ya.
Bye.
So again, we just wanted to thank Jon for coming in and answering our questions and not running at the sight of what. Well, you know what? Never mind. The point is, he just left. He made it to his car safely, pinky swear, and he's on his way home. But in all seriousness, thank you so much to Jon, and I'm so excited to check out the director's cut of The Blue Blade.
Yeah, this was cool. He is such an inspirational person, and I've really enjoyed talking with him tonight.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah. So thank you to Jon for coming out. Thank you for listening. I know it was a long one.
Yeah, and to get more information on The Blue Blade and Delusion in general, go to enterdelusion.com, and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, also find them at Enter Delusion.
So I guess that wraps it up, Mike.
Yep. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Get out. We're done for now.
I think we should all talk like this the whole podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, Mikey. Do you like being called Mikey?
You're the guest, so you do you.
Okay, Jeff.
I can guarantee you he's been called worse. With a J or a G.
Yeah. Oh, no. No G's around here. We don't do the G's.
Russell's a G.
Ah, geez.
He's an OG.
Oh, shit.
This is how it's going to go the rest of the night. This is exciting.
Let's do this.